A waitress spills champagne on the wrong man, the head of Korea's most dangerous crime syndicate. And instead of fury, he catches her wrist and asks when someone last took care of her. Within 24 hours, luxury appears at her door. Within a week, armed guards shadow her movements. Within a month, rival syndicates mark her for death. This is the story of Lena Vale, who stumbled into a private booth and accidentally became the obsession of a man who destroys anyone threatening what he loves. Like this video, comment your city so I can see how far this story travels, and follow for the conclusion that will shatter you.
Bah!
Rain hammered the streets of the city like bullets against concrete, turning every surface into black glass, reflecting neon signs that never slept. Lena Vale moved through Beaumere with the practiced invisibility of someone who had learned long ago that being noticed usually meant being hurt. 22 years old and already exhausted in ways that had nothing to do with the double shift grinding her knees into powder. The restaurant hummed with wealth so obscene it made her teeth ache. Champagne that cost more than her rent. Lobster flown in from Maine that morning, men in tailored suits discussing mergers while their mistresses picked at gold leaf desserts. She was a ghost here. That was the point. Her manager Marco caught her elbow as she balanced a tray of crystal flutes, his grip too tight, his breath coffee and cigarettes. Private booth 7, VIP section. Don't fuck it up. Lena nodded without meeting his eyes. Private booth 7 meant serious money, which meant serious assholes who tipped either spectacularly or not at all. She smoothed her black uniform dress, checked her reflection in the polished brass trim of the bar, dark hair pulled back severe, makeup minimal, expression carefully blank, and pushed through the velvet curtain into the VIP section. The air changed immediately, thicker, heavier, like walking into a room where violence had just happened or was about to. 3 men occupied the circular booth beneath amber lighting that made their faces look carved from stone. 2 flanked the sides, both broad-shouldered and watchful in a way that had nothing to do with restaurant etiquette and everything to do with threat assessment. The 3rd sat center, and Lena's survival instinct screamed at her to turn around before she took another step. He was younger than she expected, maybe 28, 30 at most. Korean features sharp enough to cut glass, dark hair pushed back from his forehead, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than every piece of clothing she'd ever owned combined. But it wasn't the money that made her pulse spike. It was the absolute stillness he radiated, the kind of calm that came from men who knew violence intimately enough to control it with surgical precision. His eyes lifted to hers, and the air left her lungs. Dark, unreadable, looking at her like he could see straight through the uniform, through the careful blankness, down to the exhausted, lonely girl underneath who hadn't felt genuinely safe in years. "Good evening," Lena said, her voice steadier than her hands. "Can I start you with—" The tray tilted. She saw it happening in slow motion. The champagne flute sliding, her grip failing because her left hand had gone numb an hour ago from carrying too much weight for too long. The crystal tipped, golden liquid arcing through the amber light straight toward the man in the center of the booth. Lena lunged forward trying to catch it. Her shoe caught the edge of the carpet runner. She went down hard, the tray clattering, champagne exploding across the table in a spray of glass, and expensive alcohol that absolutely, definitely just destroyed her job, and possibly her life, because men like this didn't forgive public humiliation, and Marco was going to... A hand caught her wrist. Not grabbed, caught. Firm enough to stop her fall, gentle enough not to hurt. Lena gasped, her knee hitting the floor, champagne soaking through her dress, glass glittering across the dark wood table. The room had gone absolutely silent. She could feel every eye in the VIP section locked on this moment, waiting to see what happened when you fucked up this badly in front of someone this important. She forced herself to look up. The man held her wrist in his hand, his thumb resting against her pulse point. He hadn't moved from his seat, hadn't flinched when champagne splashed across the table, hadn't done anything except catch her before she hit the ground completely. "I'm so sorry," Lena whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. I'll get towels. I'll get new drinks. I'll pay for—" "When did you last eat?" Lena blinked. "What?" His voice was quiet, controlled, carrying an accent that softened certain consonants. "You're shaking. Your hands are numb. When did you last eat something that wasn't stolen from the kitchen between tables?" Heat flooded her face. I'm fine, sir. I just need to—" "Answer the question." Not harsh, not angry, but absolute. Yesterday morning, Lena admitted, hating how small her voice sounded. Something flickered across his expression. Not pity, something sharper. He released her wrists slowly, deliberately, like letting go of something fragile. Then he reached inside his jacket, and Lena's entire body went rigid because men reaching inside jackets in her neighborhood meant guns or knives or... He pulled out a black leather wallet, extracted several bills without looking at them, and set them on the champagne-soaked table. "That covers the drinks in your shift," he said. "Sit down." I can't. I'm working. You just lost your job." His eyes moved past her to somewhere over her shoulder, and Lena turned to see Marco storming toward the booth, his face purple with rage. "Get out!" Marco hissed at her. "You're done. The man in the booth shifted forward slightly, and Marco's voice died mid-sentence. He didn't say anything, didn't threaten, didn't even raise his voice. He just looked at Marco with the kind of empty patience that suggested he'd watched men die and felt nothing about it. Marco went pale. "Sir, I apologize for the disruption. We'll have someone else." "She stays." 2 words. Final as a grave closing. Marco swallowed hard, his eyes darting between Lena and the man, calculating something she didn't understand. Then he nodded once, sharp and frightened, and backed away like he'd just escaped something terrible. Lena's brain couldn't process what just happened. She was still on her knees, champagne soaking through her stockings, glass glittering in her hair. The man gestured to the empty space beside him in the booth. "Sit." "I don't understand what's happening," Lena said. "Neither do I yet." He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "But you're going to sit down, and you're going to eat something, and then we're going to figure it out." Every instinct screamed at her to run. This man was dangerous. Everything about him radiated control and threat and the kind of power that destroyed people without thinking twice. The smart thing would be to apologize again, leave the money, walk out of Beaumere, and never come back. But Lena was so tired of being smart. She was tired of being invisible, of being hungry, of going home to an apartment so cold she slept in her coat, of working herself to exhaustion for men who looked through her like she didn't exist. And this man, this terrifying, impossible man, was looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Lena pushed herself to her feet, brushed glass from her dress, and slid into the booth beside him. His cologne hit her immediately, something dark and expensive, cedar and smoke. He was close enough that she could see the precise line of his jaw, the small scar beneath his left eye, the way his hands rested on the table with the casual confidence of someone who'd never doubted his ability to control a situation. One of the bodyguards murmured something in Korean. The man responded without looking away from Lena, his voice sharp. The bodyguard fell silent. "What's your name?" the man asked. "Lena. Lena Vale." "Lena Vale," he repeated, like testing the weight of it. "I'm Min Jae. Kang Min Jae." The name meant nothing to her, but the way the bodyguard shifted when he said it meant everything. "Are you going to tell me why you just saved my job?" Lena asked. "I didn't save your job. I bought your evening." Min Jae gestured to one of his men, who immediately disappeared toward the kitchen. "You were going to be fired the moment you dropped that tray. Your manager's been looking for an excuse for weeks. Sexual harassment lawsuit waiting to happen, probably." Lena stared at him. "How do you—" "I notice things." He turned to face her fully, and the intensity of his attention was almost physical. "You've been working here 4 months, double shifts Tuesday through Saturday. You take the stairs instead of the elevator because you're afraid of small spaces. You eat standing up in the kitchen when you think no one's watching. You haven't been home before midnight in 6 weeks." Her breath caught. "You've been watching me?" "I've been watching everyone. You're the first person I've seen." The distinction should have terrified her. Instead, it sent heat through her chest that had nothing to do with fear. A server appeared. Not Marco, someone else. Someone who looked at Min Jae with the kind of nervous respect usually reserved for judges or executioners, and began setting dishes across the table. Seared scallops, truffle risotto, Wagyu beef carpaccio, food Lena had served 1,000 times and never tasted. "Eat," Min Jae said. "I'm not hungry." A lie so obvious it hurt. "Lena." He said her name like a command and a question at the same time. When was the last time someone took care of you? The question hit her harder than the fall. She opened her mouth to give some dismissive answer, some joke to deflect, but nothing came out. Because the truth was, she couldn't remember. Not her mother, dead from an overdose when Lena was 16. Not the string of foster homes that taught her to sleep light and trust no one. Not the boyfriends who took what they wanted and left her more alone than before. I don't need anyone to take care of me, she said finally. That's not what I asked. Lena picked up a fork before her hands could shake. The scallop dissolved on her tongue, buttery and perfect, and she had to close her eyes because it had been so long since anything tasted like something other than survival. When she opened them, Min-jae was still watching her with that unreadable expression. Why are you doing this? She asked. I don't know yet, he admitted, but I saw you catch yourself before you fell. Most people would have let go. Let the tray smash, blamed the floor, made excuses. You tried to save it even when it meant hurting yourself. That's just reflex. No. His voice dropped lower. That's who you are. Someone who catches things even when they're already breaking. Lena set down the fork. You don't know anything about me. I know you're alone. I know you're exhausted. I know you go home to an apartment in the garment district with locks that don't work and neighbors who pretend not to hear you crying through the walls. He leaned closer, and she could feel the heat radiating off him. I know you're smart enough to be afraid of me, but you sat down anyway because part of you is so tired of being invisible that you'd rather risk danger than fade away completely. Her throat went tight. Stop. Why? Because I'm right? Because you're a stranger. So talk to me. Min-jae pushed the risotto toward her. Tell me something real. Like what? Like why you're working yourself to death in a restaurant where the manager sexually harasses you and the customers treat you like furniture. Lena laughed, sharp and bitter. Because I need money to survive? Because I don't have a degree or a family or any other options? Because this is what happens to girls like me? Girls like you, Min-jae repeated. What does that mean? Disposable. The word came out harder than she intended. Forgettable. The kind of person who could disappear tomorrow and no one would file a missing persons report. Something dangerous flashed across his expression. If you disappeared tomorrow, I would burn this city down until I found you. The absoluteness of it stole her breath. You don't even know me, Lena whispered. I know enough. He reached across the table and his fingers brushed hers, barely a touch, but it sent electricity straight through her nervous system. I know you deserve better than this. Better than Marco, better than this job, better than going home to an apartment where you don't feel safe. And you're going to give me better? She pulled her hand back. What are you, some kind of savior complex billionaire who rescues sad waitresses? No. His smile was sharp enough to cut. I'm the kind of man who takes what he wants and destroys anyone who tries to stop him. But what I want right now is to make sure you eat this meal, and then I'm going to walk you home, and tomorrow I'm going to come back and take you somewhere that isn't this place. I don't need rescuing. I'm not rescuing you, Lena. I'm asking you to let me see you, really see you, not the version you show Marco or the customers or the world. The version that's sitting here right now, afraid and exhausted and so goddamn lonely, it's killing you from the inside out. Tears burned behind her eyes, and she hated herself for it. Why? Because I recognize it. His voice went softer, almost gentle. I know what it's like to be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone, to perform for everyone and exist for no one, to wonder if anyone would notice if you just stopped showing up. Lena stared at him, this impossible man in his perfect suit with his dangerous eyes and his ability to reach inside her chest and pull out every truth she'd buried. Who are you? She asked. Someone who saw you, Min-jae said simply. And I don't look away from things that matter. They ate in silence after that, or rather Lena ate, while Min-jae watched her with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable but somehow didn't. His bodyguards remained absolutely still, eyes scanning the room, hands resting near their jackets in a way that suggested they weren't carrying wallets. When she finally pushed back from the table, full for the first time in weeks, Min-jae stood smoothly. I'm walking you home, he said. That's not necessary. It wasn't a question. Outside, the rain had softened to a cold mist that clung to everything. A black car idled at the curb. something expensive and German with windows tinted so dark they looked like oil. One of the bodyguards moved to open the door, but Min Jae waved him off. "We're walking." The bodyguard looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. Min Jae shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it across Lena's shoulders before she could protest. It was still warm from his body, smelling like cedar and smoke, and something else she couldn't identify. They walked through streets slick with rain, past closed storefronts and people huddled in doorways, past the invisible line that separated the city's wealth from its poverty. Min Jae didn't speak, but his hand hovered near the small of her back, not touching, but close enough that she felt the heat of it. When they reached her building, a sagging pre-war walk-up with graffiti on the door and garbage piled on the stoop, Lena stopped. "This is me," she said. Min Jae studied the building with an expression she couldn't read. "The lock on the front door is broken. Third-floor window has bars that have been pried loose, fire escape access from the alley." "How do you—" "I notice things," he said again. Then he looked at her, really looked at her, and Lena felt pinned beneath the weight of it. "Tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. I'm picking you up." "I work tomorrow." "Not anymore." "You can't just—" "Lena." He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you that tomorrow at 7, I'm going to be standing right here, and you're going to get in my car, and I'm going to take you somewhere that isn't this building or that restaurant or any other place that makes you feel small." "And if I say no?" His smile was slow, dangerous, beautiful. "Then I'll wait here until you say yes, but you're not going to say no." "You seem very sure of yourself." "I am." He reached up and tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear, his fingers barely grazing her cheek. "Because you felt it too. That moment in the booth when everything else disappeared and it was just us. When someone finally saw you and you didn't have to pretend anymore." Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. "I don't even know you." "You will." He stepped back, hands sliding into his pockets. 7 o'clock, Lena Vale, don't make me wait." He turned and walked back toward the car where his bodyguards waited. Lena stood on the stoop clutching his jacket, watching him disappear into the mist and neon like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Inside her apartment, one room with a bathroom the size of a closet, furniture she'd found on the street, windows that didn't close all the way, Lena sat on her mattress and pressed her face into Min Jae's jacket. It still smelled like him, like danger and certainty, and the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, someone had finally seen her. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Sleep well. Tomorrow changes everything." Lena stared at the message, her pulse racing. She should block the number, should throw the jacket away, should run from whatever this was before it consumed her completely. Instead, she typed back, "How did you get my number?" The response came immediately. "I told you. I notice everything about you. That's not an answer. Neither is avoiding tomorrow." Lena lay back on her mattress, phone clutched against her chest, jacket wrapped around her like armor or a promise. She didn't sleep that night because she knew, with absolute bone-deep certainty, that whatever happened tomorrow would divide her life into before and after, and Min Jae never let go of what he wanted. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Lena called in sick to Beaumere. Marco answered, sounded relieved, told her not to bother coming back. No 2 weeks' notice, no final paycheck, just erasure. She should have been panicked about money, about rent, about survival. Instead, she stood in front of her closet, staring at clothes that suddenly seemed impossibly shabby. At 6:45, she gave up trying to make herself look like someone who belonged in Min Jae's world and settled for clean jeans, a black sweater, and the leather jacket he'd left her wearing like a brand. At 6:58, she stood by the window watching the street. At 7 exactly, the black car pulled up to the curb. Min Jae emerged wearing dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that made him look younger, less corporate, but no less dangerous. He looked up at her window, and their eyes met across the distance. Lena grabbed her keys and ran down the stairs before she could talk herself out of it. He was waiting on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. "You came," he said. "You knew I would. I hoped." He opened the car door. "But I don't take you for granted, Lena. I won't ever take you for granted." The interior of the car was leather and technology and absolute silence. The bodyguard from last night sat up front, eyes forward, giving them privacy. Minjae settled beside her, not touching, but close enough that she felt the heat of him. "Where are we going?" Lena asked. "Somewhere I can talk to you without interruption." He glanced at her. "Are you afraid?" "Should I be?" "Probably." His honesty was brutal. "But I won't hurt you, Lena. That's a promise I don't make lightly." They drove through the city as evening light turned everything golden orange, past neighborhoods Lena had only seen in magazines, up into hills where houses became estates and estates became fortresses. The car turned through iron gates that opened automatically, up a private drive lined with cherry trees, stopping in front of a house. No, a compound of glass and steel and modern architecture that looked like it had been carved from a mountain. "This is your home?" Lena breathed. "One of them." Minjae opened her door himself, offered his hand. "Come on, I want to show you something." She took his hand because turning back now felt impossible. Inside, the house was all open space and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city spread out below like scattered diamonds. Minimal furniture, expensive art she didn't recognize, the kind of silence that only came with serious money. Minjae led her through the house to a terrace that jutted out over the hillside. The view stole her breath, and the entire city laid out beneath them, lights beginning to flicker on as darkness fell. "I come here when I need to think," Minjae said, "when the weight of everything gets too heavy." "What do you do?" Lena asked. "For real. Not just restaurants and cars and houses like this." He was quiet for a long moment, and she thought he might not answer. "I run a corporation," he said finally. "Import-export, real estate development, technology investments. Legitimate businesses worth billions." He paused. "And underneath all of that, I run an organization my father built before me. One that operates in the spaces between legal and necessary. One that has enemies who would use anyone I care about as leverage." Lena's stomach dropped. "You're talking about organized crime." "I'm talking about power," Minjae corrected. "About control and loyalty and doing what needs to be done to protect the people who matter." He turned to face her fully. "I'm telling you this because if you stay, if you choose to be part of my life, you need to understand what that means. It means danger, Lena, real danger. It means people will try to hurt you, to hurt me." "Then why tell me at all?" Her voice shook. "Why not just let me think you're some rich businessman? Because I don't want you to choose me based on lies." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "I want you to choose me knowing exactly what you're getting into, the good and the terrible." Lena should run, should call a cab, get away from this man and his world and the danger he represented. But his hand was warm against her skin, and his eyes held hers with an intensity that made her feel real for the first time in years. "Why me?" she whispered. "You could have anyone." "I don't want anyone." His voice dropped to something almost reverent. "I want the girl who caught herself before falling, who goes home alone and cries but shows up the next day anyway, who's been invisible so long she forgot what it feels like to matter to someone." "Minjae." "I'm going to make you matter, Lena. I'm going to make you the center of my entire world. And anyone who tries to touch you, anyone who tries to hurt you, I will destroy them so completely they'll regret ever knowing your name." It should sound insane. It should terrify her. Instead, it felt like coming home. "I don't know how to do this," Lena admitted. "I don't know how to be with someone like you." "Then learn." He leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. "Learn with me. Stay with me. Let me take care of you the way no one else ever has." "What if I'm not strong enough for your world?" "Then I'll make you stronger." His lips brushed her temple, soft as prayer. "But you're already stronger than you know, Lena Vale. You survived alone this long. Imagine what you could do with someone fighting beside you." She kissed him before she could think better of it, rising up on her toes and pressing her mouth to his. He went absolutely still for one heartbeat, then his arms came around her like steel and safety and salvation all at once. The kiss was nothing like she expected. Not rough or demanding, but careful, almost reverent, like he was holding something precious that might break. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Minjae rested his forehead against hers. "Stay tonight," he said. "Not for sex or expectation, just stay. Let me feed you. Let me show you what it feels like to sleep somewhere safe." Lena nodded because words had abandoned her completely. That night, she ate food prepared by a private chef, sat beside Min-jae on a couch watching the city lights, and fell asleep against his shoulder feeling more protected than she'd ever felt in her life. She woke just before dawn to find him watching her, his hand tangled in her hair. "Morning," he said softly. "Is this real?" she whispered. "Yes." He kissed her forehead. "And tomorrow it still will be. And the day after that. And every day until you believe it." But outside in the streets far below, enemies were already beginning to move. Because in Min-jae's world, weakness was death. And Lena Vale had just become his greatest vulnerability and his most dangerous obsession. The first week passed like a fever dream Lena couldn't wake from. Min-jae didn't just take her into his world, he rebuilt hers from the foundation up. Monday morning, she woke in the guest bedroom of his penthouse to find a breakfast spread waiting on the terrace, not delivered by staff. Min-jae himself stood there in dark slacks and a white shirt rolled to his elbows, pouring coffee like he'd been doing it for her his entire life. "You don't have people for this?" Lena asked, still half asleep, wrapped in a robe that cost more than her former security deposit. "I have people for everything." He handed her the cup, their fingers brushing. "But I wanted to do this myself." "Why?" "Because watching you wake up is the best part of my day." He said it without romance, just flat honesty that hit harder than any practiced line. "And I don't share the best parts." By Tuesday, armed drivers appeared outside whatever building she entered. Min-jae called it protection. Lena called it suffocating until she noticed the way their eyes never stopped moving, hands always near concealed weapons, bodies positioned between her and potential threats she couldn't see. "Do I really need this?" she asked that evening, watching the guard stationed outside Min-jae's building lobby. "Yes." Min-jae didn't look up from the tablet he was reading, fingers moving across financial reports written in Korean and English. "My enemies know my routines, my properties, my vulnerabilities. The moment you stayed that first night, you became the most valuable vulnerability I have." "That's romantic." "It's honest." He set down the tablet, gave her his full attention. "I'm not going to lie to you about the danger, Lena. That's the deal. Complete transparency or nothing." Wednesday brought a confrontation she didn't expect. Min-jae's driver took her to a private medical clinic in a part of the city where buildings didn't have addresses, just numbers known by people who mattered. Inside, a doctor examined her with clinical efficiency. Blood work, physical assessment, questions about her medical history that made Lena's skin crawl. "What is this?" she demanded when Min-jae appeared in the waiting room afterward. "Making sure you're healthy." His expression was unreadable. "When did you last see a doctor?" "I don't know, 3 years? 4? "Exactly." He stood, took her hand. "You've been surviving, not living. That changes now. You can't just make medical decisions for me." "I didn't. I scheduled an appointment. You chose to come." "Because your driver brought me here without telling me where we were going." Min-jae's jaw tightened. "You're right. I should have asked first." The admission clearly cost him. "I'm not used to asking permission. I'm used to handling things." "I'm not a thing to handle." "No." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "You're the most important person in my life, and I'm terrified something will happen to you that I could have prevented. So I'm going to make mistakes, Lena. I'm going to overstep and control too much because that's what I know how to do. But I need you to call me on it, every time. Don't let me turn into someone you're afraid of." The raw vulnerability in his voice diffused her anger faster than any apology could have. "I'm not afraid of you," she said quietly. "I'm afraid of losing myself in you." "Then don't." His hand came up to cup her face. "Stay yourself. Fight me when I'm wrong. Make me earn you every single day." Thursday, Lena met the first real piece of Min-jae's world beyond bodyguards and luxury. His second-in-command arrived at the penthouse just after dawn, a Korean man in his 40s named Sung-ho, with scar tissue running down the left side of his neck and eyes that had seen terrible things without flinching. He spoke to Min-jae in rapid Korean, gesturing toward a tablet showing security footage, and Lena watched Min-jae's expression go absolutely cold. "What's wrong?" she asked when Sung-ho left. "Business." "Don't do that. Don't shut me out." Min-jae exhaled slowly, ran a hand through his hair. "There's a territorial dispute. Another organization moving into areas we control. They're testing boundaries, seeing how far they can push before we respond." "And what happens when you respond?" People get hurt. No euphemism, no softening. That's the reality, Lena. I don't pull triggers myself anymore, but I give the orders. And those orders have consequences. She should have recoiled, should have felt disgust or fear or moral superiority. Instead, she just felt tired. Is there another way? Always. His smile was bitter. But the other ways cost more. Cost loyalty, cost territory, cost the illusion of strength that keeps worse violence from happening. This world runs on fear and respect. Show weakness and someone fills the vacuum, usually with more bloodshed than what you were trying to prevent. So you're saying violence prevents violence. I'm saying I'm not a good man, Lena. I've never pretended to be, but I'm trying to be a better man than my father was. And the best version of myself is the one I am when I'm with you. Friday, everything shattered. Lena was walking back from the corner market. Min-jae had finally convinced his security team to let her have 20 minutes of normal human activity when the black sedan pulled up beside her. Different car, different plates, wrong everything. The back window rolled down and a man she'd never seen looked out at her. Chinese features, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Lena Vale," he said in accented English. "We should talk." Every instinct screamed run, but the street was empty. Her security was half a block back, and running meant turning her back on a threat. "I don't know you," Lena said, hand sliding toward her phone. "But I know you. Know you're sleeping in Kang Min-jae's bed, eating his food, wearing clothes he bought you." The man's smile widened. "Know you used to be a waitress barely surviving. Now you're playing house with a gangster. Quite the upgrade. What do you want?" "To give you advice." He leaned back, completely relaxed. "Men like Min-jae don't keep women like you. They use you until something better comes along or until keeping you becomes inconvenient. Right now you're a novelty, a project. Give it 6 months and you'll be a liability he can't afford." "You don't know anything about him." "I know he's his father's son." The man's expression hardened. "I know his father built an empire on bodies and broken loyalty. No, Min-jae is worse because he's smarter, more controlled, more dangerous." "Is this where you offer me money to leave him?" Lena's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Because I'm not interested." "No." The man pulled out a business card, set it on the window edge. "This is where I give you an exit strategy for when he inevitably destroys you. Because he will, Miss Vale. Men like him destroy everything they touch." The window rolled up and the sedan pulled away smoothly, leaving Lena standing on the sidewalk with a business card she didn't want and words echoing in her skull. She didn't tell Min-jae about the encounter. Not immediately. Not when she got back to the penthouse and he kissed her forehead, asked about her walk. Not during dinner when he told her about a legitimate acquisition deal he was negotiating. Not even when they lay in bed that night, his arm around her waist, breathing synchronized. But the card burned in her pocket like accusation. Saturday morning, Min-jae's phone rang at 4 a.m. He answered in Korean, voice going from sleepy to lethal in 3 words. Lena watched him dress in the dark. Black clothing, no suit this time, something tactical and efficient. "I have to go," he said, checking a weapon she hadn't known he kept in the nightstand. "Stay here. Don't leave the building. Sung-ho is downstairs." "What's happening?" The territorial dispute escalated. He kissed her hard and fast. "I'll be back by noon." "Min-jae, I'll be back." A promise and a prayer. He wasn't. Noon came and went. 1 p.m., 2. By 3, Lena was pacing the penthouse like a caged animal, calling his phone and getting voicemail. By 4, Sung-ho appeared at the door with an expression that made her stomach drop. "He's hurt?" Lena demanded. "He's contained." Sung-ho's English was precise, careful. "Situation became complicated. He sent me to keep you safe." "What does contained mean?" "Means he's handling it and doesn't want you in the crossfire." "Take me to him." "Absolutely not." "That wasn't a request." Lena grabbed her jacket. "Either you drive me or I find my own way." Sung-ho studied her for a long moment, something like respect flickering across his face. "You understand if we go, you'll see things you can't unsee." "I understand I need to see him." The drive took 40 minutes into industrial areas where buildings had broken windows and streets had no names. They parked outside a warehouse that looked abandoned except for the 3 black SUVs positioned like sentries. Inside, the temperature dropped 20 degrees, concrete floors, metal beams. And in the center, Min-jae stood over a man tied to a chair, his knuckles bloody, shirt torn, expression absolutely empty. 2 other men flanked him, enforcers, soldiers, whatever term applied to people who hurt others professionally. The man in the chair was crying, begging in Mandarin, blood running from his nose and mouth. Min-jae looked up when Lena entered, and something cracked across his face. "Get her out of here." "She insisted," Sung-ho said. "I don't care if she—" Min-jae stopped, jaw clenching. He gestured sharply, and the enforcers stepped back, giving them space. "Lena, you shouldn't be here." "What are you doing?" Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Getting information." He wiped blood from his knuckles with a rag someone handed him. "This man knows who ordered the attack on one of our warehouses. 3 of my people are dead. He's going to tell me who gave the order. And then what? Then we respond appropriately." The man in the chair sobbed something in Mandarin. Min-jae responded in the same language, his tone flat and final. "He says he doesn't know anything," Min-jae translated. "He's lying." "How do you know?" "Because I've been doing this since I was 16. He dropped the rag, took a step toward her. "This is what I meant about my world, Lena. This is the reality underneath the penthouses and the money. Sometimes violence is the only language that gets spoken." She wanted to look away, wanted to run back to the car and pretend she'd never seen this. But she'd demanded to come, had insisted on seeing all of him. "Are you going to kill him?" Lena asked. "Eventually." No hesitation. "But first he tells me what I need to know. And if he doesn't know anything, then he dies protecting someone who wouldn't do the same for him." Min-jae's eyes held hers, searching for something. "Does this change things, seeing what I actually do?" Lena walked forward until she stood directly in front of him, close enough to smell blood and sweat and the cologne he'd been wearing that morning. "It terrifies me." "Good." His hand came up, cupped her face, left a smear of someone else's blood on her cheek. "You should be terrified. But does it change us?" She should say yes, should run from this warehouse and this man and this world where violence was currency and life was negotiable. Instead, she kissed him in front of his men and the dying stranger and the concrete reality of who Min-jae actually was. When she pulled back, his expression was raw, broken open. "I need you to leave now," he said quietly. "Sung-ho will take you home. I'll be there tonight. Promise me." "I promise." He kissed her forehead, her nose, her mouth. "I'll always come back to you." Sung-ho drove her back in silence. Lena stared out the window at the city sliding past, that business card still burning in her pocket, blood still drying on her cheek. That night, Min-jae came home at 11. He looked exhausted, haunted, still wearing the blood-stained clothes. He found her on the terrace, staring at the city lights. "Did he talk?" Lena asked. "Yes." "Did you kill him?" "No." Min-jae sat beside her, shoulders slumping. "I let him go with a message for whoever sent him. Sometimes mercy is more terrifying than violence." "I met someone yesterday," Lena said. "A man in a black sedan, Chinese. He knew who I was, knew about us." Min-jae went absolutely still. "What did he say?" "That you'll destroy me eventually, that men like you destroy everything you touch." She finally looked at him. "That I should have an exit strategy." "Did he threaten you?" "No. He gave me his card." She pulled it out, handed it over. "Said to call when things inevitably fall apart." Min-jae studied the card, his jaw working. "Chen Wei-lin. He works for the Zhang family. They're the ones moving into our territory." He looked at her. "This was a test. They wanted to see if you could be leveraged, turned against me." "And? And the fact that you told me means they failed." He crushed the card in his fist. "But it also means they know you matter to me, which makes you a target. I've been a target since the first night." "This is different." Min-jae stood, started pacing. "Before you were a curiosity, a potential weakness. Now you're confirmed. They'll come for you, Lena, not to kill you, to take you, to use you as leverage." Fear spiked through her chest. "So what do we do?" "I move you somewhere safer, somewhere they can't reach." Like where? I have a house outside the city, fortified, secure. You stay there until this situation resolves. That sounds like a prison. It's protection. It's isolation. Lena stood to face him. I didn't choose this life to hide from it. You didn't choose this life at all. His voice cracked, raw emotion bleeding through. I pulled you into it. I made you visible. Every threat you face is because of me. And leaving me alone in some fortress is supposed to make that better? It keeps you alive. I don't want to just be alive, Minji. I want to live. They stood there breathing hard, the argument hanging between them like broken glass. I can't lose you, Minji said finally, voice breaking. I can't watch you get hurt because I was selfish enough to want you in my world. Lena crossed the space between them, took his face in both hands. Then teach me how to survive in it. Make me stronger instead of hiding me away. Lena, I mean it. You said you'd make me stronger, so do it. Teach me how to see threats, how to protect myself, how to exist in your world without being a victim. Something shifted in his expression. That's not a small thing you're asking. I know. It means changing who you are, how you see the world, how you react to danger. I'm already changed. She pressed her forehead to his. The girl you met at Bomir doesn't exist anymore. She disappeared the moment I got in your car. So teach me how to be the person who survives beside you. Minjae kissed her desperately, like she was oxygen and he was drowning. When they finally broke apart, his decision was made. Okay, he said, but we do this right, starting tomorrow. The next morning, Lena's education began. Sungho arrived at dawn with a woman Lena had never met. Korean, early 30s, eyes like a predator, and a handshake that could crush bones. This is Ji-yeon, Minjae introduced. She handles security for our high-value personnel. She's going to teach you situational awareness, threat assessment, and basic self-defense. I'm going to teach you how not to die, Ji-yeon corrected, her English sharp. Pay attention, and you might survive. Zone out, and you'll get yourself or someone else killed. The training was brutal. Ji-yeon didn't coddle or encourage. She threw Lena into scenarios without warning, walking through the building while Ji-yeon's team played potential attackers, identifying threats in crowded spaces, learning to read body language and micro-expressions that signaled danger. Most people who get hurt ignore their instincts, Ji-yeon said, watching Lena scan a shopping district from a rooftop. They feel something's wrong but talk themselves out of it because they don't want to seem paranoid. In this world, paranoia keeps you breathing. How do you live like this? Lena asked. Always watching, never relaxed. You get used to it. Ji-yeon's smile was grim. And when you stop getting used to it, you retire or die. Usually die. Meanwhile, Minjae brought Lena deeper into his legitimate business operations. She sat in on meetings about real estate acquisitions, technology patents, international trade agreements, watched him navigate boardrooms with the same lethal precision he applied to everything else. You're good at this, Lena observed after a particularly brutal negotiation where Minjae had dismantled the opposing team's position piece by piece. I'm good at reading people, he corrected, finding weaknesses, exploiting them. Doesn't matter if it's a corporate merger or a territorial dispute. The psychology is the same. That's depressing. That's reality. He glanced at her. You need to learn it too. How to see past what people say to what they actually want. How to identify leverage. How to protect yourself in conversations, not just physical confrontations. But the lessons that haunted her came late at night when Minjae couldn't sleep. He'd stand on the terrace staring at the city, smoking cigarettes he claimed he'd quit years ago, and tell her stories about his father. He was brilliant, Minjae said one night, smoke curling into darkness. Built the organization from nothing, commanded absolute loyalty through fear and respect. But he was also brutal, paranoid, saw betrayal everywhere. Is that why you're so controlled? Lena asked. Because you saw what happens when you're not? I saw what happens when power becomes the only thing that matters. Minjae crushed the cigarette under his heel. My father destroyed anyone who showed weakness, including family, including me when I was too young to defend myself. What did he do to you? Made me watch executions when I was 12, put a gun in my hand at 14, forced me to make choices no child should make. His voice went hollow. By 16, I'd killed 3 men. Not in self-defense, not in combat. Just cold executions to prove I could. Lena's breath caught. Min-jae, you wanted to know all of me. He turned to face her. This is all of me, Lena. A man built from violence who's trying to be something different, but the foundation is still blood and fear. You're not your father. How do you know? Because you're teaching me to be strong, not obedient. Because you asked me to call you out when you overstep. Because you're trying. She crossed to him, took his hands. Your father made you into a weapon, but you're choosing to be more than that. What if I can't? The vulnerability in his voice broke her. What if the violence is all I really am? Then we figure it out together. He pulled her against him, buried his face in her hair, and she felt his shoulders shake with something that might have been grief or relief or exhaustion. 2 weeks into her new life, reality came crashing back. Lena was leaving a private gym where Ji-yeon had been teaching her hand-to-hand combat when the first bullet shattered the window 6 inches from her head. Training took over before conscious thought. She dropped, rolled behind a concrete pillar, heard Ji-yeon's weapon clear its holster with practiced efficiency. 3 shooters, Ji-yeon said calmly, eyes scanning rooftops. Suppressed rifles, professional. Another bullet sparked off concrete. Then another. Someone screamed in the street. Ji-yeon spoke rapidly into her radio in Korean, then grabbed Lena's arm. We move now. Stay low. Don't stop. They ran through the building's back exit into an alley where a black SUV already waited, engine running. Ji-yeon shoved Lena inside and the vehicle was moving before the door closed. Are you hit? Ji-yeon demanded, hands checking Lena for injuries. No, I'm fine. What the hell was that? Jong family sending a message. Ji-yeon's phone was already at her ear, reporting the incident in clipped Korean. They drove to a location Lena didn't recognize, underground parking, private elevator, ascending into a fortified safe house that looked like it had been designed for exactly this scenario. Minji was already there, pacing like a caged animal, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in Korean so rapid Lena couldn't follow individual words. He saw her and the phone dropped from his hand. Are you hurt? He crossed the room in 3 strides, hands on her face, her shoulders, checking for damage. I'm fine. Ji-yeon got me out. This is my fault. His voice was ragged. I should have moved you sooner. Should have. Don't. Lena grabbed his hands. I'm okay. We're okay. They tried to kill you, Lena. No, Ji-yeon interjected. They tried to scare her. Professional shooters at that range don't miss unless they're supposed to. This was intimidation. Then they succeeded. Min-jae's expression went absolutely cold. Sung-ho, mobilize everyone. I want locations on every Jang family lieutenant by morning. We're ending this. Min-jae, wait, Lena started. No. He turned to her and she barely recognized the man looking back. No more half measures, no more warnings. They came after you. That's a line no one crosses. What are you going to do? What I should have done weeks ago. He kissed her hard, final. You stay here. This location is secure. No one knows about it except my inner circle. How long? As long as it takes. He was already moving toward the door. Ji-yeon stays with you. Sung-ho and I handle the rest. Min-jae. Lena caught his arm. Don't do something you can't come back from. His smile was terrible. I crossed that line when I was 16, remember? This is just who I am. He left before she could argue. The safe house became a prison of luxury and isolation. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a city Lena couldn't touch. Security monitors displayed angles of empty hallways. Ji-yeon maintained professional distance, checking perimeters, speaking quietly into her radio, giving Lena space that felt more like quarantine. Hours passed. Then days. Min-jae called once, his voice exhausted. I'm okay, don't worry. Where are you? Cleaning up a mess. I'll explain when I'm back. Min-jae, I love you. He said it like a confession. I should have said it before. I love you, Lena Vale, and I'm going to make sure no one ever threatens you again. The line went dead. Lena stared at her phone, those 3 words echoing in her skull. He'd never said them before, had shown her in 1,000 ways but never spoken the actual words. And now he'd said them from whatever hell he was waging war in. On the 4th day, Ji-yeon's radio crackled with urgent Korean. Her expression shifted. Not quite alarm, but close. What? Lena demanded. They're coming back. Min-jae and Sung-ho, 10 minutes out. Lena was waiting when the elevator opened. Min-jae stepped out and she almost didn't recognize him. Bruised face, split lip, blood on his clothes that might or might not be his own, eyes completely empty. "It's done," he said. "The Zhang family won't be a problem anymore." "What did you do? What needed to be done?" He swayed slightly and Lena caught him. "I'm tired, Lena. So goddamn tired." She helped him to the bedroom, sat him on the edge of the bed, started carefully removing his ruined clothing. The bruises underneath were spectacular. Ribs, shoulders, knuckles shredded. "You need a doctor," Lena said. "I need you." He pulled her down onto his lap, buried his face against her neck. "Just you. Just this." They sat like that for a long time, his breathing gradually slowing, his grip gradually loosening. "I killed people," he said finally. "Not ordered it. Did it myself. 3 men who planned the attack on you." Lena's hand stilled on his shoulders. "I wanted you to hear it from me," Min-jae continued. "Wanted you to know exactly what I'm capable of when someone threatens you. Because this is who I become, Lena. This is the monster underneath all the control. She should be horrified, should push him away, should demand he take her somewhere far from this world and this violence and this man. Instead, she kissed his forehead, his bruised cheekbone, his split lip. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered. "I'm afraid of losing you." "You won't." His arms tightened around her. "I'm done, Lena. Done with the criminal side, done with the violence. I'm dismantling it all." "What?" "I've been planning it for months. Moving assets, converting operations, creating legitimate alternatives. The Zhang situation just accelerated the timeline." He pulled back to look at her. "I want out. I want a life with you that doesn't involve bullets and safe houses and blood on my hands. Can you actually walk away?" "I can try." His smile was broken. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the man you deserve instead of the one my father made me." Lena framed his face with both hands. "I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be here." "Then I'm here." He kissed her desperately. "I'm right here, and I'm never leaving you again." They made love slowly, carefully, his bruised body moving against hers like prayer or apology or promise. Afterward, they lay tangled together, his heart beating against her palm, and Lena finally understood what it meant to be someone's entire world. "I love you too," she whispered into the darkness. "I should have said it sooner." Min-jae's arms tightened around her. "Say it again. I love you. Again." "You, Kang Min-jae. All of you, the good and the terrible." He made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob, pulled her impossibly closer. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. But inside this safe house, inside this moment, they were finally, devastatingly home. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Sung-ho arrived with news that couldn't wait. Lena sat beside Min-jae on the couch, his hand wrapped around hers, while Sung-ho delivered his report in English for her benefit. "The Zhang family is in disarray. Leadership fractured. They're pulling back from disputed territory." He paused. "But there's blowback. Other families are watching how you handled this. Some see strength. Others see destabilization." "Let them watch," Min-jae said. I'm done playing games. There's more." Sung-ho's expression tightened. "Your father's old associates are asking questions. They're concerned about the direction you're taking things. They're concerned I'm not brutal enough. They're concerned you're making decisions based on personal attachment rather than organizational interests." Sung-ho glanced at Lena. "No offense." "None taken," Lena said quietly. "They're right." Min-jae's jaw clenched. "Schedule a meeting. I'll address their concerns directly." After Sung-ho left, Lena turned to Min-jae. "What happens in that meeting?" "I convince them that what I'm doing is best for everyone, that legitimizing operations protects us better than violence and territory wars." "And if they don't agree?" "Then I replace them." His voice was flat. "I'm not my father, but I'm still the one who gives orders. They follow, or they leave. Or they try to remove you." His eyes met hers. "That too." The meeting happened 3 days later in a private room of a restaurant Lena recognized. Beaumere, where everything started. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Stay in the car, Minji said as they pulled up. This shouldn't take long. I'm coming with you. Lena, you said complete transparency. That goes both ways. She squeezed his hand. I need to see all of it. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Stay close to me. Don't speak unless spoken to. And if anything goes wrong, Ji-yeon gets you out immediately. The private dining room held 8 men, all Korean, all older than Min-jae, all watching him with expressions ranging from concern to barely concealed hostility. Lena recognized the dynamic immediately, wolves circling a younger alpha, testing for weakness. Min-jae spoke in Korean, his voice calm and authoritative. Lena couldn't follow the words, but she understood the body language. Challenge and defense, question and answer. The temperature in the room rising degree by degree. Then one of the older men responded, gesturing toward Lena, and Min-jae's expression went absolutely lethal. English, Min-jae said sharply. If you have something to say about her, say it so she understands. The man smiled thinly. I simply observed that your father never let personal attachments influence business decisions. He understood that emotional vulnerability makes you weak. My father died alone, paranoid, and hated by almost everyone who knew him, Min-jae replied. If that's the definition of strength, I'll happily choose weakness. You've started a war over a woman, another man interjected. Lost good people, destabilized relationships with neighboring organizations. For what? A girl you met in a restaurant? Lena felt Min-jae's hand tighten on the back of her chair. Careful. We mean no disrespect to Miss Vale, the first man continued, but you must understand our concern. You're making radical changes, legitimizing operations, pulling back from profitable ventures, reducing security presence in key territories, all while being distracted by personal matters. I'm not distracted. Min-jae's voice could have cut steel. I'm refocusing, building something sustainable instead of something that requires constant violence to maintain. My father's way was effective for his time, but times change, markets change. What worked 30 years ago gets you arrested or killed now. So you abandon everything he built? I'm transforming everything he built into something that lasts. Min-jae leaned forward. You want to know why I'm doing this? Because I'm 29 years old and I'm tired. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of body counts. Tired of living like my father did, alone and paranoid. I want more than that. And if you can't adapt to that vision, then you're welcome to leave. Silence settled over the room like snow. With full honors and generous severance, Min-jae added. I'm not my father. I don't execute people for disagreeing with me, but I'm done justifying my decisions to men who should trust my leadership by now. One of the men stood slowly. I followed your family for 32 years, through your father's regime and into yours, and I've never seen you more focused or more effective than you are right now. He bowed slightly to Lena. If this woman gives you clarity of purpose, then she's an asset, not a liability. Another man nodded agreement, then another. But one man in the corner remained unmoved, his expression hard. And when she leaves you? When this infatuation burns out and you're left with a weakened organization and angry enemies? She's not leaving, Min-jae said simply. How can you be certain? Min-jae looked at Lena, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. Then he turned back to the room. Because I'm going to marry her. Lena's breath stopped. Min-jae continued, voice steady. I'm going to marry Lena Vale, and she's going to become part of this organization officially. Not as decoration or weakness, but as family, and anyone who has a problem with that can leave right now. No one moved. Good. Min-jae stood. Then we're done here. You'll receive detailed transition plans by end of week. Any concerns go through Sung-ho. He took Lena's hand and walked out of the room with his head high and his grip trembling slightly. In the car, Lena finally found her voice. You just told your entire inner circle you're marrying me. I know. You didn't ask me first. I know that too. He turned to face her, vulnerability and determination warring across his expression. I'm not good at asking, Lena. I'm better at doing, but if you need me to ask, I will. Right now, in this car. I'll ask you to marry me and spend the rest of my life proving I deserve your yes. Lena's eyes burned. You're impossible. Is that a no? It's a, you're lucky I love you. His smile broke like sunrise. Is that a yes? It's a ask me properly and we'll see. Min-jae laughed, actually laughed, and pulled her into a kiss that tasted like relief and promise and the terrifying future they were building together. But even as she kissed him back, Lena felt the weight settling around them. She'd just become more than Min-jae's girlfriend or his weakness. She'd become his public commitment, his declared future, the woman he'd chosen over his father's legacy. And in a world where power was everything, that made her the most valuable target of all. That night, as they lay in bed in the penthouse, Min-jae's phone buzzed with an encrypted message. Lena watched his expression change as he read it, watched him go absolutely still. "What is it?" she asked. He showed her the screen. "Your father's old enemies remember what he did to them. They're very interested in meeting his son's soon-to-be wife. Congratulations on the engagement." Below the message was a photo of Lena, taken that afternoon, from inside Beaumere during the private meeting. Someone on Min-jae's inner circle had just sold them out, and the war they thought was over had only just begun. Min-jae stared at the photo on his phone like it was a death sentence written in pixels and betrayal. Lena watched his face transform from shock to something colder, something that reminded her exactly who he'd been before she stumbled into his booth with champagne and trembling hands. "How many people knew about that meeting?" Lena asked, her voice steadier than her pulse. 8 men in that room, Sung-ho, Ji-yeon, my driver." Min-jae's thumb moved across the screen, enlarging the image. "And whoever took this photo was standing near the kitchen entrance. Same angle as the service staff. Someone on the inside. Someone who's been on the inside long enough to know exactly how to hurt me." He set the phone down with careful precision, the kind of control that preceded violence. "Get dressed. We're leaving." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere no one knows about. Not Sung-ho, not Ji-yeon, no one." He was already moving, pulling clothes from drawers, checking a weapon Lena hadn't known he kept in the closet. "Pack light. We have 10 minutes. "Min-jae, slow down. 10 minutes, Lena." His eyes met hers, and she saw genuine fear there for the first time. "Someone in my organization just told my father's enemies exactly where to find you, which means they also know this location, my patterns, my security protocols. We need to move now." Lena packed without arguing, shoving clothes into a bag with shaking hands. Her mind raced through the faces she'd met over the past weeks. Sung-ho with his scar tissue and loyal efficiency. Ji-yeon with her predator eyes and patient training. The men at the restaurant who challenged Min-jae's decisions but ultimately fallen in line. Any of them could be the leak. All of them had opportunity. They took the service elevator down to the parking garage. Min-jae's hand hovering near his concealed weapon, eyes scanning every shadow. A different car waited, not one of the black SUVs, but a nondescript sedan that looked like it belonged to an accountant or a teacher. Min-jae drove himself, no security detail, taking surface streets instead of highways. "Where are we going?" Lena asked again. "A place my father used when he needed to disappear. He bought it under a shell corporation 30 years ago. Never told anyone about it except me." Min-jae's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "I haven't been there since he died." They drove for 2 hours into the mountains, the city lights fading behind them until darkness swallowed everything except the road ahead. The safe house appeared suddenly, a modernist structure built into the hillside, all concrete and glass and brutal angles designed to withstand assault. Inside, the air was stale and cold. Min-jae moved through rooms, flipping breakers, activating systems that hummed to life with mechanical efficiency. Lena watched him work, saw the way his shoulders carried tension like armor. "We're safe here," he said finally, though his hand never left his weapon. "For now." "And then what?" Lena set her bag down. "We can't hide forever." "No. But we can figure out who's trying to kill us before they succeed." Min-jae pulled out his phone, stared at the encrypted message again. This came from an anonymous number, routed through 4 different countries. Professional work. "Your father's old enemies. What does that mean?" Min-jae sat down heavily, exhaustion finally cracking through his control. "My father built his empire by destroying 3 other organizations, absorbed their territory, their operations, their people. But he didn't just defeat them. He humiliated them, made examples, the kind of examples that create generational hatred." "How bad?" Bad enough that some of those families spent decades planning revenge they never got to execute because my father died first. His voice went hollow. And now they're looking at his son, the one who's supposed to be softening, legitimizing, falling in love, and making himself vulnerable. Lena's breath caught. I made you vulnerable. No. Min-jae looked at her sharply. I chose you. I chose this. Don't take that away from me by blaming yourself for other people's evil. But the guilt sat in her chest anyway, heavy and cold. They spent the night planning. Min-jae made encrypted calls to contacts Lena didn't know he had. People outside his organization, people who dealt in information rather than loyalty. Each conversation was brief, clinical, transactional. By dawn, he had a list of 3 families who might want revenge badly enough to infiltrate his organization. Park family, Min-jae said, staring at his notes. My father killed the head of their organization and 2 of his sons. The surviving son runs a shipping empire in Busan now. Legitimate on paper, but everyone knows better. Could he have planted someone? Maybe, but the Parks are traditional, honor-bound. Infiltration isn't their style. He moved to the next name. Chen family, Chinese. My father destroyed their operations in the port district and took their primary smuggling routes. They've rebuilt in Southeast Asia, but they've never forgotten. Chen, Lena repeated, like the man who gave me his card. Chen Wei-lin. Min-jae's eyes sharpened. He said he worked for the Zhang family. He said that. Doesn't mean it was true. Son of a bitch. Min-jae grabbed his phone, made another call in rapid Korean. When he hung up, his expression was grim. Chen Wei-lin doesn't exist in any Zhang family records. The name is an alias. So he lied about who he worked for, which means the Zhang conflict might have been a distraction. Min-jae stood, started pacing. They wanted me focused on an external threat while someone on the inside fed them information. Who's the 3rd family? Min-jae stopped pacing. Hwang family, Korean. My father didn't just destroy them, he made them watch, forced the father to choose which son lived and which died, then killed them both anyway. Lena felt sick. Jesus Christ. The surviving daughter disappeared 20 years ago. Rumors said she went to America, changed her name, vanished completely. Min-jae looked at Lena. She'd be in her 40s now, old enough to have built a new identity, smart enough to wait decades for the right moment. Do you have a photo? Not anymore. My father burned everything related to the Huang family after he finished with them. Min-jae's jaw clenched. But someone would remember her. Someone who was there. He made another call, spoke quietly in Korean for several minutes, then hung up looking shaken. What? Lena demanded. One of my father's old lieutenants remembers her. Says she was 17 when it happened. Beautiful, brilliant, and absolutely destroyed by what she witnessed. Min-jae met Lena's eyes. He said the last time he saw her, she swore she'd make my father's bloodline suffer the way hers had. But your father's dead. I'm not. The words hung in the air like a verdict. I'm his son, his heir, the one carrying his legacy forward. Lena crossed to him, took his hands. So what do? We find her before she finds you. The next week became a descent into paranoia and investigation. Min-jae contacted every person who'd been in his organization for more than 10 years, asked careful questions, searched for inconsistencies. Lena watched him transform into someone harder, colder, more like the man his father had tried to create. He barely slept. When he did, he woke with his hand on his weapon, eyes scanning for threats that weren't there. You need to rest, Lena said on the 4th night, finding him at the window staring into darkness. I'll rest when you're safe. Min-jae, 3 people are dead, Lena. He didn't turn around. 3 of my people who were helping with the investigation, found in ways that send a message. Whoever this is, they're not just coming for us. They're destroying anyone who gets close to the truth. Then maybe we should stop investigating, go somewhere they can't find us, disappear, and live in hiding forever? He finally looked at her. That's not living. That's just surviving. I'm good at surviving. I know you are. His expression softened fractionally. But you deserve more than survival. We both do. The break came on day 8. One of Min Jae's contacts found immigration records for a woman who'd entered the United States from South Korea 20 years ago under the name Hannah Huang. She'd changed it legally to Hannah Park 3 years later, then to Hannah Chen 5 years after that. The trail went cold in San Francisco before picking up again in Seattle, then Vancouver, then back to the East Coast. She's been building identities, Min Jae said, studying the documentation. Learning, preparing. For what? For this. He pulled up another file. Hannah Chen applied for a position with one of my logistics companies 6 months ago. Rejected because she was overqualified, but she tried again 3 months later with a different company. Got the job. Lena's stomach dropped. Which company? The one that handles secure communications for my personal security team. Min Jae's voice was absolutely flat. She's had access to my schedules, my movements, my security protocols for 3 months. Jesus Christ. It gets worse. He opened another file. The woman who interviewed and hired her? Ji-yeon. The name hit Lena like a physical blow. No, Ji-yeon's been training me, protecting me. She had opportunity and access. Min Jae's hand shook as he scrolled through more data. And 3 weeks ago, she requested a transfer to my personal security detail, said she wanted to be closer to operational decisions. That doesn't mean she's the leak, no, but it means she could be. He looked at Lena with eyes full of terrible understanding. And if she is, then Hannah Huang has been inside my organization this entire time, learning everything she needs to destroy us both. Lena sat down before her legs gave out. What do we do? We set a trap. Min Jae's expression went absolutely cold. We use the one advantage we have, which is, they think we don't know. He started typing rapidly on his laptop. They think we're still investigating, still searching, so we give them what they want. We make ourselves visible, vulnerable, and when they make their move, we're ready. That's insane. That's the only option that doesn't involve running forever. Min Jae stopped typing, looked at her directly. I won't ask you to be bait, Lena. If you want to disappear, I'll make it happen. New identity, new life, somewhere they'll never find you. Without you? I can't run. They'll chase me until one of us is dead, but you could get out, be safe. Lena thought about the girl she'd been 6 weeks ago. Invisible, exhausted, going home to an apartment where she didn't feel safe. That girl would have run, would have taken the escape and never looked back. But she wasn't that girl anymore. What's the plan? She asked. Min Jae's smile was sharp and terrible and full of love. We announce our engagement publicly, make it the biggest event this city has seen in years. And we invite everyone who matters, including Ji-yeon and anyone else who might be compromised. You want to gather all your enemies in one place? I want to force their hand before they're ready. Make them move on our timeline instead of theirs. He leaned forward. They've been planning this for months, maybe years, but we announce the engagement tomorrow. Give them 3 days to prepare. They'll have to improvise, make mistakes, expose themselves. Or they'll kill us both. They'll try. His hand found hers across the table. But they don't know you've been training. They don't know I've been preparing for this exact scenario my entire life. They think they're hunting prey. They don't realize they're walking into an ambush. Lena squeezed his hand. When you say it like that, it almost sounds reasonable. It's completely insane. Min Jae pulled her onto his lap, buried his face in her hair. But it's the only way I can think of to end this without spending the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. Okay. Lena turned to face him. We do it. But if this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, she insisted, you don't martyr yourself trying to save me. You survive. You build the life you were planning. He kissed her silent. If this goes wrong, we go down together. That's the deal. I don't exist in a world where you don't. They made love that night like it might be the last time, desperate and tender and absolutely present. Afterward, lying tangled together in darkness, Min Jae whispered the plan in detail. Every contingency, every backup, every way it could succeed or fail. Lena memorized it all, knowing that in 3 days, everything would change. The engagement announcement went public the next morning. Min Jae didn't do anything halfway. He arranged a press conference at his corporate headquarters, invited business media, society reporters, everyone who mattered in the city's social and financial circles. Lena stood beside him in a dress that cost more than her former annual salary, wearing a diamond ring that had appeared on her finger that morning without ceremony or proposal. "I thought you were going to ask properly," she'd said when she found it. "I am asking." He'd taken her hand, met her eyes. "Lena Vale, will you marry me knowing that I'm using our engagement to draw out enemies who want us dead?" "That's the worst proposal I've ever heard." "Is it a yes?" "It's a, you're lucky I love you, you impossible bastard." Now, standing in front of cameras and reporters, Min-jae looked every inch the billionaire CEO, polished and controlled and giving away nothing. He spoke about legitimate business expansion, about building a future, about finding someone who made him want to be better than his father's legacy. He didn't mention the guns his security carried, didn't mention the threat assessment team scanning every face in the crowd, didn't mention that 3 days from now, at an engagement party designed to look like celebration, they'd be fighting for their lives. "Mr. Kang," a reporter called out, "there are rumors about your late father's business dealings. Do you worry about his reputation affecting your legitimate operations?" Min-jae's smile never wavered. "My father built an empire. I'm transforming it into something sustainable. His methods were effective for his time. I'm building something that lasts beyond fear and control." "And Miss Vale," another reporter addressed Lena directly, "how does it feel to be marrying into one of the city's most powerful families?" Lena had rehearsed this answer. "It feels like coming home." The press conference lasted 30 minutes. Afterward, in the private elevator ascending to Min-jae's office, Lena finally exhaled. "That was terrifying," she said. "You were perfect." Min-jae pulled her close. "Now we wait and see who takes the bait." The response came faster than expected. That afternoon, Ji-yeon requested a private meeting, said she had security concerns about the engagement party, wanted to discuss protocols and positioning. Min-jae scheduled it for the next morning, then spent the night installing hidden cameras and microphones in his office, preparing to document whatever confession or threat might emerge. Lena barely slept. She kept seeing Ji-yeon's face during their training sessions, hearing her voice explaining how to survive. Had it all been manipulation? Had every lesson been designed to make Lena trust her before the betrayal? Morning came too quickly. Ji-yeon arrived exactly on time, professional in dark clothing and efficient movements. She sat across from Min-jae's desk, opened a tablet showing security diagrams, and began discussing perimeter protocols with calm expertise. "The main vulnerability is the south entrance," Ji-yeon said. "Too many sightline obstructions. I'd recommend additional personnel here and here." Min-jae nodded, giving nothing away. "What else?" "Guest list verification. We need biometric confirmation, not just invitation checks. Too easy to forge credentials otherwise." "Concerned about infiltration?" "Always." Ji-yeon looked up, met his eyes directly. "You've made enemies, Min-jae. Some of them have been waiting years for an opportunity like this." "Like who?" "Like families your father destroyed who never forgot." She set down the tablet. "I know what you're doing. The sudden public engagement, the rushed timeline. You're drawing them out." Min-jae's hand moved fractionally closer to the weapon beneath his desk. "And you know this how?" "Because I do the same thing." Ji-yeon leaned back. "You think there's a leak in your organization? You're right. You think it might be me. Also right to consider." Lena tensed, ready to move. "But it's not me," Ji-yeon continued. "It's Sung-ho." The name detonated like a grenade in the quiet office. "Bullshit," Min-jae said flatly. "Check his financials. Offshore accounts opened 6 months ago. Deposits that don't match his salary." Ji-yeon pulled up documentation on her tablet, turned it toward Min-jae. "He's been feeding information to someone. I've been tracking it for weeks, trying to confirm before bringing it to you." Min-jae stared at the financial records, his expression unreadable. "This could be fabricated." "It could be. Or it could be the truth you don't want to see." Ji-yeon's voice softened. "Sung-ho was your father's man before he was yours. And your father made a lot of promises to a lot of people. Promises about succession, about who would inherit control. I'm the heir. You're the son. But you're also the one dismantling everything your father built. Converting to legitimate operations. Ending territorial control. Some people think that makes you a traitor to his legacy." Min-jae's jaw clenched. "Sung-ho would have told me if he disagreed with my direction." "Would he?" Or would he smile and nod and work with your enemies to replace you with someone more like your father? Ji-yeon stood slowly. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to investigate before it's too late. Because whoever's coming for you at that engagement party, they're coming with inside information. And Sung-ho has access to everything they'd need. She left without waiting for dismissal. Min-jae sat motionless, staring at the financial documents, his breathing carefully controlled. Could she be lying? Lena asked quietly. Yes. He didn't look away from the screen. Or she could be telling the truth, and I've been blind to it. Sung-ho's been with you for years. He was with my father for 20 years before that. Min-jae finally looked up, and Lena saw the devastation in his eyes. I trusted him completely. Gave him access to everything. If he's been compromised, then we verify. Lena crossed to him. We investigate like you would any other threat. No assumptions, just evidence. Min-jae nodded slowly, but something had broken in his expression. The realization that he might not know who to trust anymore, not even the man who'd stood beside him since his father's death. The investigation took 12 hours. Min-jae brought in an outside forensic accountant, someone with no ties to his organization. The money trail Ji-yeon had shown them was real. Offshore accounts in Sung-ho's name. Deposits totaling over $2 million in the past 6 months. Transactions timed to coincide with security breaches and information leaks. But there was something else. These deposits, the accountant said, pointing to the screen, they're too obvious. Too easy to find. Professional money laundering doesn't leave trails like this. What are you saying? Min-jae asked. I'm saying either Sung-ho is terrible at hiding his crimes, or someone wanted you to find this. Min-jae went absolutely still. Someone's framing him, or someone's creating reasonable doubt about the real leak. The accountant closed his laptop. Without more information, I can't tell you which. After the accountant left, Min-jae stood at the window of his office, staring at the city below. Lena watched him from the couch, saw the weight settling on his shoulders. Talk to me, she said. I don't know who to trust anymore. His voice was hollow. Ji-yeon gives me evidence against Sung-ho, but Ji-yeon could be the actual leak trying to eliminate the one person who might expose her. Or they could both be compromised, or neither. Or the real traitor is someone I haven't even considered. So what do we do? Min-jae turned to face her. We proceed with the plan, but we trust no one except each other. The engagement party is tomorrow. I know. He crossed to her, knelt in front of the couch, took her hands. I'm going to ask you one more time. You can still leave, disappear, be safe. And I'm going to tell you one more time. Lena cupped his face. I'm not leaving. We do this together, or not at all. You're the bravest person I've ever met. I'm terrified. That's what makes it brave. He kissed her palm. Tomorrow night, stay close to me. Don't trust anyone who approaches you, even if they seem friendly. If shooting starts, you get behind cover and you stay there until I come for you. What if you don't come? Then you run. You take the emergency exit we discussed, you get to the backup car, and you drive until you reach the safe house. There's documentation there, new identity, money, everything you need to disappear. Min-jae is... Promise me. His grip tightened. Promise me that if I don't make it, you'll survive. You'll live. You'll build the life we were planning, even if I'm not there to see it. Tears burned behind her eyes. I promise. But you have to promise me something too. Anything. You don't sacrifice yourself trying to protect me. We both survive or we both go down fighting. Deal. He pulled her down into a kiss that tasted like desperation and determination and love powerful enough to survive tomorrow's violence. The engagement party was held at Beau Mer, the restaurant where everything began. Min-jae had rented the entire venue, filled it with flowers and champagne and string quartets playing classical music. 300 guests mingled in designer clothing and expensive jewelry, celebrating a union most of them knew nothing about. Lena wore a dress that cost more than her former apartment's annual rent, deep emerald silk that made her dark hair look almost black, cut to allow movement in case running became necessary. The engagement ring caught light like a warning. Min-jae stood beside her in a black suit, greeting guests with practiced charm, while his eyes never stopped scanning the room. She knew he had security positioned throughout the venue, knew that Sung-ho was here somewhere, either protecting them or preparing to destroy them. knew that Ji-yeon was monitoring external approaches either as loyal guardian or perfect infiltrator. Smile, Min-jae murmured. We're supposed to be celebrating. Lena forced her expression into something approaching happiness. I hate this. 3 more hours, then it's over. But it didn't take 3 hours. 90 minutes into the party, the lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in immediately, bathing the restaurant in red emergency lighting that turned everything into a nightmare landscape. Someone screamed, glass shattered, and then gunfire erupted from multiple directions at once. Lena dropped instantly, training taking over before conscious thought. Min-jae was beside her, weapon already in his hand, body covering hers as bullets punched through walls and windows. Stay down, he commanded, then was moving, returning fire toward muzzle flashes in the darkness. Chaos consumed the restaurant. Guests screaming, running, diving for cover. Security forces engaging with attackers. Lena couldn't see clearly in the strobing emergency lights, the smell of gunpowder and fear thick enough to taste. Then someone grabbed Lena from behind. She reacted exactly as Ji-yeon had trained her, driving her elbow back into ribs, twisting away from the grip, reaching for the small weapon Min-jae had insisted she carry. But the attacker was faster, stronger, slamming her against the wall hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. Lena Vale, a woman's voice said in accented English. Finally! Lena blinked through pain and red emergency lighting at the face inches from hers. The woman was in her early 40s, Korean features, expensive suit, and eyes full of decades-old hatred. Hannah Huang, Lena gasped. Very good. Hannah's smile was terrible. Did Min-jae tell you about me? About what his father did to my family? Yes. Did he tell you he watched? Hannah's grip tightened on Lena's throat. Did he tell you he was there that night, 11 years old, watching my father choose between my brothers while his father laughed? Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, black spots dancing across her vision. I've waited 20 years for this, Hannah continued. 20 years planning, building, positioning, and now I'm going to take from Kang Min-ji exactly what was taken from me, his family, his future, his reason to live. She raised a weapon toward Lena's head. A gunshot cracked through the chaos. Hannah jerked, stumbled back, blood blooming across her shoulder. Min-ji stood 10 feet away, weapon smoking, expression absolutely murderous. Let her go. Hannah laughed, wild and broken. You think you've won? This isn't even the real attack, you stupid boy. This is the distraction. Min-jae's eyes widened in understanding a second too late. The explosion ripped through the kitchen, the blast wave slamming everyone to the ground. Lena's ears rang, her vision swimming, chunks of ceiling crashing down around them. Through the smoke and destruction, she saw Min-jae pushing himself up, saw Hannah crawling toward a weapon she'd dropped, saw the entire restaurant burning and collapsing and becoming a tomb for everyone inside. Then Sung-ho appeared through the smoke, and Lena couldn't tell if he was there to save them or finish what Hannah had started. Get up, Sung-ho commanded in Korean, hauling Min-jae to his feet. Both of you. We have maybe 90 seconds before this building comes down. You're the leak, Min-jae said, weapon rising. I'm trying to save your life, you ungrateful bastard. Sung-ho grabbed Lena's arm, dragged her toward the emergency exit. Move or die. Your choice. Another explosion, closer this time. The floor tilted, groaned, began collapsing. Min-jae grabbed Lena's hand and they ran through smoke and fire and falling debris, following Sung-ho through passages that shouldn't exist, emergency routes that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. They burst onto the street as Beaumare collapsed behind them in a roar of destruction and flame. Lena collapsed on the pavement, lungs burning, ears ringing, alive despite every odd. Min-jae knelt beside her, checking for injuries with shaking hands. Are you hurt? I don't know. Everything hurt. Hannah, dead. Sung-ho stood over them, covered in dust and blood. She was still inside when the final charge went off. You saved us, Lena said. I did my job. Sung-ho looked at Min-jae. And before you ask, the offshore accounts were planted. Ji-yeon tried to frame me to hide her own involvement. She's the one who helped Hannah get inside your organization. Min-jae stared at him. Ji-yeon. Ji-yeon was Hannah's daughter. Sung-ho's expression was grim. Different fathers, different names, but the same Huang bloodline, same hatred for your family. She's been feeding intelligence to her mother for 6 months. The betrayal hit Lena like a physical blow. All those training sessions, all those conversations, Ji-yeon teaching her to survive while planning her death the entire time. "Where's she now?" Min-jae demanded. "Gone. Disappeared the moment the attack started." Sung-ho helped them both to their feet. "But she'll surface eventually. They always do." Emergency vehicles screamed toward the burning restaurant. Min-jae watched his past burning, his father's legacy turning to ash and smoke. "How many dead?" he asked quietly. 43 confirmed so far, mostly guests. Some security." Sung-ho's voice was heavy. "Hannah wanted maximum casualties. Wanted to destroy everything you'd built." "She succeeded." Min-jae's hand found Lena's, gripped tight. "Everything I tried to create. Everyone who trusted me. Gone." "You're alive," Lena said. "We're both alive. That's not nothing. It's not enough." He turned to look at her, and she saw something broken in his eyes. "I brought you into this world, and it almost killed you. I brought all those people to that party, and they died because of me. They died because of Hannah Huang's hatred, because of your father's crimes, not because of you. I'm his son, his heir. His crimes are mine." "No." Lena grabbed his face, forced him to look at her. "You're the man trying to be better than his father. The man who chose love over violence. The man who's still standing here after they tried to destroy him. That's who you are." Sirens wailed closer. Sung-ho spoke quietly into his phone, coordinating rescue efforts and security responses. Min-jae pulled Lena against him, buried his face in her hair. "I can't do this anymore. Can't keep fighting. Can't keep putting you in danger." "Then we leave," Lena said. "We disappear like we talked about. Build a life somewhere they'll never find us. Ji-yeon is still out there. She'll come for us eventually. Then we'll be ready." Lena pulled back to meet his eyes. "But we do it together. No more fighting alone. No more carrying this weight by yourself." Min-jae kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. "I love you. That's the only thing I'm certain of anymore." "Then hold on to that certainty." Lena squeezed his hands. "And let's get the hell out of this city before anything else tries to kill us." They walked away from the burning restaurant, from the screaming sirens, from the life Min-jae had tried to build and Hannah Huang had destroyed. Behind them, Baomir collapsed completely, taking with it every ghost of who they'd been before. Ahead stretched nothing but darkness and uncertainty and the terrifying possibility of freedom. And somewhere in that darkness, Ji-yeon was watching, waiting, planning her own revenge for a mother who died hating the Kong family with her final breath. The war wasn't over. It had only just evolved into something more personal, more patient, and infinitely more dangerous. They disappeared into the mountains 3 hours after Baomir burned. Sung-ho drove them in silence through winding roads that climbed away from the city lights, away from the sirens and smoke and bodies being pulled from rubble. Lena sat in the back seat with Min-jae's hand locked around hers, both of them covered in dust and other people's blood, neither speaking because there were no words for what they'd survived. The safe house appeared just before dawn, not the one Min-jae's father had built, but something older, deeper in the wilderness. A compound hidden behind trees and rock faces, designed by someone who understood that true security came from isolation, not technology. "How long have you known about this place?" Min-jae asked, as Sung-ho unlocked reinforced doors. "Your father showed it to me 23 years ago. Said if everything went to hell, this is where we'd regroup." Sung-ho's voice was rough with exhaustion. "Never thought I'd actually need it." Inside, the compound was Spartan but functional. Generator power. Water from an underground spring. Enough supplies to survive for months without contact with the outside world. Min-jae checked every room with his weapon drawn, trusting nothing, while Lena collapsed on a couch that smelled like dust and abandonment. When Min-jae finally returned, he looked 10 years older than he had that morning. "We're secure," he said, "for now." "And Ji-yeon?" Lena asked. "Gone. Completely off-grid." Sung-ho set a laptop on the table, pulled up surveillance footage from the engagement party. "She disabled our perimeter cameras 40 minutes before the attack, walked out the service entrance and disappeared. Professional extraction. Someone was waiting for her." Min-jae watched the footage with empty eyes. Show me the casualties. Min-jae, show me. Sung-ho pulled up the list. 43 names. People who'd come to celebrate, who'd trusted Min-jae's security, who died because Hannah Huang wanted revenge and Ji-yeon had given her the access to achieve it. Some of them Min-jae had known for years. Others were business associates, society figures, people who'd been strangers to him, all dead because he'd tried to draw out his enemies. This is on me, Min-jae said quietly. This is on the people who planted explosives in a public restaurant, Sung-ho corrected. Don't take their sins onto yourself. I set the trap. They died in it. Lena watched him spiraling, saw the guilt eating him alive. She crossed to him, took his face in both hands. You didn't kill those people. Hannah and Ji-yeon did. And if you let their deaths destroy you, then the Huang family wins anyway. They already won, Min-jae's voice cracked. Look at what they took from me. My organization, my reputation, my future, everything I tried to build. They didn't take me. Lena pressed her forehead to his. I'm still here. We're still here. That's not nothing. He pulled her against him, shoulders shaking with silent grief. Lena held him while he finally broke, while the weight of 43 deaths and a lifetime of violence crashed down on the man who'd been holding it together through sheer will. Sung-ho quietly left the room, giving them privacy. Eventually, Min-jae's breathing steadied. He pulled back, wiped his eyes roughly. I need to make this right. How? I don't know yet. He looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. But Ji-yeon is still out there. She helped murder 43 people, and she's going to do it again if we don't stop her. So we hunt her. We? Min-jae's expression hardened. No, absolutely not. You're staying here where it's safe. Safe? Lena laughed bitterly. There is no safe anymore, Min-jae. She knows about me, knows I matter to you. Hiding won't change that. It keeps you alive. For how long? Until she finds this place too? Until she burns it down around us like she did Bomir? Lena grabbed his hands. I'm not sitting here waiting to die. If we're doing this, we do it together. Lena, you promised me. We both survive or we both go down fighting. Those were your words. Min-jae stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled slowly. You're right. But if we do this, we do it smart. No rushing in, no emotional decisions. Agreed. And you follow my lead. I've been hunting people since I was 16. You haven't. Also agreed. Lena squeezed his hands. So where do we start? Sung-ho answered from the doorway. We start with the fact that Ji-yeon made a mistake. Both of them turned. What mistake? Min-jae asked. She used a personal account to book her extraction vehicle. Probably figured she'd be dead or disappeared before anyone traced it. Sung-ho pulled up a new file on his laptop. But I have contacts at every rental agency in the city. Found the booking an hour ago. Black sedan. Rented under the name Hannah Park. Hannah's alias, Lena said. Exactly, which means Ji-yeon kept using her mother's identity infrastructure even after Hannah died. Sung-ho zoomed in on the rental details. The car was supposed to be returned 3 days ago. It wasn't, which means Ji-yeon either abandoned it or she's still using it. Can you track it? Min-jae leaned closer to the screen. Already did. GPS shows it moving north. Stopped 12 hours ago at a location about 200 miles from here. Sung-ho pulled up a map. Middle of nowhere, no towns nearby, just forest and an old logging road. Min-jae studied the map. She's regrouping, probably has a safe house of her own. Or she's setting another trap, Lena said, letting us find the car so we'll come to her. Possible, Min-jae rubbed his face. But it's the only lead we have. So we check it out, Sung-ho said. Carefully, with backup. What backup? Min-jae gestured at the empty room. My organization is in chaos. Half my people are dead. The other half don't know who to trust. Then we go alone. Sung-ho started packing weapons from a locked cabinet. 3 of us. Low profile. We scout the location, confirm Ji-yeon's there, and we end this. And if it is a trap? Then we spring it on our terms instead of hers. They spent the next 6 hours preparing. Sung-ho had enough weapons and equipment hidden in the safe house to outfit a small army. He showed Lena how to properly handle a rifle, how to clear jams, how to aim for center mass instead of trying for headshots. You hesitate. You die, Sung-ho said bluntly. Ji-yeon won't. She's been trained since childhood. She'll put a bullet in you without blinking. Comforting, Lena muttered. It's honest. He adjusted her grip on the rifle. Better you know what you're facing than go in with illusions. Min-jae watched from across the room, cleaning his own weapons with mechanical efficiency. Lena caught his eye, and he gave her a small nod. Trust. Partnership. The understanding that they were walking into hell together. They left at dusk, taking a different vehicle, a reinforced SUV that Sung-ho claimed could take sustained gunfire and keep moving. The drive north took 3 hours through increasingly remote terrain. Civilization fell away mile by mile until there was nothing but forest and darkness, and the occasional logging road cutting through trees that had stood for centuries. We're close, Sung-ho said, killing the headlights and switching to night vision. Half a mile ahead, they parked and continued on foot, moving through forest with practiced silence. Min-jae took point, his movements fluid and controlled. Sung-ho covered their rear. Lena stayed between them, rifle ready, heart hammering against her ribs. The safe house appeared through the trees, a small cabin built into the hillside, smoke rising from a chimney, a single vehicle parked outside. The black sedan from the rental agency. She's there, Min-jae whispered. They watched from this tree line for 20 minutes, looking for patterns, guards, any sign of additional security. Nothing moved except the smoke and the wind through the trees. Too quiet, Sung-ho said. She's expecting us. Or she's alone and unprepared. Min-jae checked his weapon. Either way, we're here. We finish this. They approached from 3 angles, staying low, using trees for cover. Lena's mouth was dry, her hands steady on the rifle despite the adrenaline screaming through her system. Every training session with Ji-yeon flashed through her mind. The woman who'd taught her to survive was inside that cabin, waiting to kill her. Min-jae reached the door first, tested the handle, locked. He gestured to Sung-ho, who produced a small device that made the lock click open with barely a sound. They entered fast and hard, weapons raised, clearing corners with professional efficiency. The cabin was empty. Not just unoccupied, deliberately staged. A laptop sat open on the table, its screen showing a live video feed. Of them. Of this moment. Multiple camera angles covering the cabin interior. Fuck, Sung-ho breathed. The laptop speakers crackled to life. Ji-yeon's voice, distorted slightly by digital transmission, filled the room. Hello, Min-jae, Lena, Sung-ho. Welcome to your funeral. Min-jae grabbed Lena's arm. Out! Now! They ran for the door just as the first explosion tore through the cabin's foundation. The floor buckled, walls collapsing, fire erupting from beneath them. Lena felt Min-jae's hand on her back, shoving her forward through smoke and flame and falling debris. They burst outside as the cabin collapsed completely behind them. But Ji-yeon wasn't done. Gunfire erupted from the tree line. Multiple shooters, professional positioning, crossfire patterns designed to leave no escape. Bullets tore through the air, sparking off rocks, punching through tree trunks. Cover! Sung-ho dove behind a boulder, returning fire toward muzzle flashes. Min-jae pulled Lena behind the wrecked sedan, using it as a shield while bullets shredded metal and glass. How many? At least 4, Sung-ho called back. Maybe more. Lena raised her rifle, spotted movement in the trees, fired 3 times. Someone screamed. First blood. Her hands shook, but she kept the weapon raised, scanning for more targets. Good shot, Min-jae said, then was moving, laying down suppressing fire while Sung-ho repositioned. The fight became chaos. Muzzle flashes in darkness. The smell of gunpowder and burning wood. Lena's ears ringing from sustained fire. She shot at shadows, at movement, at anything that might be trying to kill them. Hit some. Missed others. Lost count of how many rounds she'd fired. Then Min-jae grunted in pain and went down. Min-jae! Lena scrambled to him, saw blood spreading across his shoulder. You're hit! I'm fine. He wasn't. His face was pale, breathing shallow. Keep shooting. You're not fine, you're... A figure emerged from the smoke and darkness. Ji-yeon, wearing tactical gear, weapon raised, moving with lethal grace toward their position. Lena raised her rifle, but Ji-yeon was faster, firing twice. The bullets hit the sedan inches from Lena's head, showering her with glass fragments. "Give up, Lena," Ji-yeon called out. "You're outnumbered. Min-jae's wounded. Sung-ho's pinned down. This ends one way." "Then come finish it," Lena shouted back, her voice steadier than her hands. "Stop hiding behind your mercenaries." Ji-yeon laughed. "You think you can take me? I've been training for this since I was 8 years old. You've had 6 weeks and some basic self-defense lessons." "Then I guess we'll see." Lena stood, stepped out from behind the sedan, rifle raised. Time seemed to slow. She saw Ji-yeon's eyes widen slightly, saw her weapon coming up, saw Min-jae trying to rise behind her and failing. She remembered every lesson, every drill, every moment of training with the woman who was now trying to kill her. They fired simultaneously. Lena felt something tear through her left side, white-hot pain that stole her breath. But she kept her weapon raised, kept firing until the magazine clicked empty. Ji-yeon stumbled back, hit at least twice, maybe 3 times. She fell to her knees, weapon dropping from her hands. For a moment, they just stared at each other across the smoke and darkness. Teacher and student. Would-be killer and survivor. "You were supposed to die," Ji-yeon said, blood on her lips. "You were supposed to be weak, helpless, an easy target. You taught me better than that." Lena pressed her hand to her side, felt blood hot and sticky between her fingers. "Guess you're a really good instructor," Ji-yeon laughed, wet and broken. "My mother was right. The Kong family destroys everything, even people trying to destroy them." "Your mother was wrong!" Min-jae's voice, strained but strong, came from behind Lena. He'd managed to stand, weapon trained on Ji-yeon. "My father was a monster, but I'm not him, and this cycle of revenge ends tonight." "You're going to kill me?" Ji-yeon looked almost hopeful. "Finally embrace what you really are?" "No." Min-jae lowered his weapon. "I'm going to let you live with the knowledge that you failed, that you sacrificed everything, your identity, your honor, your mother's memory, and you still couldn't destroy us. That's crueler than death." "I know." Min-jae's expression was empty. "But I'm done creating martyrs, done adding bodies to my family's legacy." "You want to kill me? You want revenge? You're going to have to live long enough to try again, and you're going to do it knowing you already lost once." Ji-yeon stared at him, and something broke in her expression. Not grief, not rage, just exhaustion. "I'm tired, Min-jae. So tired of hating you." "Then stop." He gestured to Sung-ho, who'd emerged from cover and was securing the remaining mercenaries. "Get medical attention, disappear. Build a life that isn't about destroying mine. Because if you come for us again, I won't show mercy twice." Sung-ho approached Ji-yeon carefully, kicked her weapon away, checked her wounds. "She needs a hospital. She'll bleed out otherwise." "Then call one." Min-jae swayed, his own wound bleeding steadily. "And make sure she understands that if she ever surfaces in my city again, the deal's off." Ji-yeon nodded weakly. "Understood." Lena watched this exchange through a haze of pain and adrenaline crash. Her side burned like fire, her vision swimming, but she stayed upright through sheer will. She'd survived. They'd both survived. Sung-ho made calls, arranged medical evacuation, dealt with the aftermath, while Min-jae collapsed beside Lena on the ground. "You got shot," Lena said. "So did you." He took her hand, their blood mixing where their fingers intertwined. "We're a match set now. This is the worst engagement story ever." Min-jae laughed, then winced. "We're alive. That's the only story that matters." Helicopters appeared overhead. Sung-ho's medical contacts moving fast. They were loaded onto stretchers, treated with battlefield efficiency, transported to a private facility that asked no questions and documented nothing. The next 48 hours blurred together. Surgery to remove bullets. Antibiotics pumped through IV lines. Pain medication that turned everything soft and distant. Lena woke periodically to find Min-jae in the bed beside hers, both of them bandaged and broken but breathing. On the 3rd day, they were stable enough to talk coherently. "Ji-yeon's gone," Sung-ho reported. "Discharged herself 12 hours after surgery. Disappeared completely. My contacts will let me know if she surfaces anywhere." "And the mercenaries?" Min-jae asked. "Dead or scattered. The ones who survived aren't talking." Sung-ho set a tablet on the bedside table. "But we have bigger problems." "Of course we do," Lena muttered. Sung-ho pulled up news reports. The Baumir explosion had made international headlines. 43 dead. Massive investigation. Federal authorities looking into organized crime connections. Min Jae's name was everywhere, his past being excavated, his father's legacy resurrected. "They're coming for your organization," Sung-ho said. "Federal prosecutors, tax investigators, everyone who's been waiting for an excuse to take down the Kang family. Let them." Min Jae's voice was flat. "I meant what I said. I'm done. Done with the organization, done with the violence, done with being my father's son. You can't just walk away. Watch me." Min Jae turned to look at Lena. "We disappear. New identities, new country, new life. Everything we talked about." "What about justice?" Lena asked. "Those 43 people They deserve a lot of things they'll never get because they're dead." Min Jae's eyes were hollow. "But I can't bring them back. All I can do is make sure no one else dies because of my family's sins. So we run. We survive." He reached for her hand. "We build something that doesn't require blood to maintain. Isn't that what we wanted?" Lena thought about the girl she'd been 8 weeks ago. Invisible. Exhausted. Going home to an apartment where she didn't feel safe. That girl had wanted to be seen. To matter. To feel alive. And she'd gotten all of that. Along with gunshot wounds and trauma and the knowledge that loving Min Jae meant living in a world where people planted explosives in restaurants to settle decades-old grudges. "I love you," she said finally. "But I need you to be honest with me. Can you actually walk away? Can you let go of everything your father built without it eating you alive?" Min Jae was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, but I'm going to try, because the alternative is becoming exactly what he was. And I'd rather die trying to be better than live as his legacy." "Okay." Lena squeezed his hand. "Then we disappear. Together." Sung-ho worked his contacts, creating new identities with the kind of thoroughness that came from decades in the shadow world. Within a week, Lena Vale and Kang Min Jae ceased to exist on paper. In their place emerged Elena Vasquez and Marcus Chen, a couple with legitimate backgrounds, clean credit histories, no connection to organized crime or international incidents. They had passports, birth certificates, employment records, everything needed to build a life from scratch. "Where do you want to go?" Min Jae asked as they reviewed the documentation. "Somewhere warm," Lena said. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one plants explosives in restaurants." "New Zealand," Sung-ho suggested, "or Costa Rica. Both have strong privacy laws and beautiful landscapes." "Costa Rica," Min Jae decided. "Near the ocean. Away from everything." They left the country 3 days later, before the federal investigation could reach them, before anyone realized Min Jae had vanished. Sung-ho stayed behind to manage the controlled demolition of the organization, converting what could be legitimized and dismantling the rest. "You're sure about this?" Sung-ho asked at the airport. "I've never been sure of anything except her," Min Jae replied, his arm around Lena's shoulders. "Everything else is just details." They flew first class under their new names, landed in San Jose, and took a private car to a coastal town so small it barely appeared on maps. The house Min Jae had arranged sat on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, all glass and open space, and the sound of waves constant and eternal. No guards, no security systems, no reinforced doors or panic rooms. Just them and the ocean and the possibility of peace. The first night they stood on the terrace watching sunset paint the sky gold and orange and red. Lena's side still ached where the bullet had torn through. Min Jae's shoulder moved stiffly where his own wound was healing. They both carried scars now, visible reminders of what they'd survived. "Do you think Ji-yeon will come back?" Lena asked. "Eventually." Min Jae pulled her closer. "But not soon. She needs time to heal, to process, to decide if revenge is worth dying for. And when she does, then we deal with it together." He kissed her temple. "But until then, we live. We build the life we were fighting for. We prove that my father's legacy doesn't have to define us." Lena leaned into him, felt his heartbeat steady against her back, watched the sun sink into the ocean like a promise being made. They'd survived explosions and betrayal and bullets. They'd walked away from everything they'd known. They'd chosen each other over power, over revenge, over the weight of generational hatred. And standing there watching the ocean swallow the sun, Lena finally understood what freedom felt like. It felt terrifying. It felt fragile. It felt like the most dangerous thing they'd ever done was choosing to be happy. But they were doing it anyway, because some battles weren't won with guns or violence or strategic brilliance. Some battles were won by simply refusing to let hatred win, by choosing love over legacy, by building something new instead of maintaining something broken. Min-jae turned her to face him, his expression soft in the fading light. "Marry me." "You already asked, sort of. That was to draw out enemies." He took both her hands. "This is me asking because I want to spend every day of my life waking up next to you. Because you're the only person who's ever made me want to be better than my father. Because I love you more than I've ever loved anything." Lena's eyes burned. "That's a much better proposal. Is it a yes?" "It's a yes, you impossible man. Let's get married and pretend we're normal people for as long as we can get away with it." He kissed her as the last of the sunlight died, as stars began appearing overhead, as the ocean continued its endless rhythm below them. They were free. They were together. They were alive. And for now, that was enough. But in a clinic somewhere far away, Ji-yeon sat alone in a recovery room, her wounds healing, her mother's dying words echoing in her memory. Destroy them. Make them suffer. Never let them forget what they took from us. She'd failed once, underestimated Lena, shown mercy she shouldn't have accepted, but Ji-yeon had learned something valuable in that forest clearing. She'd learned that Min-jae would sacrifice anything to protect Lena, that his love made him vulnerable in ways his father's paranoia never had, and vulnerability could be exploited. Not now. Not for months, maybe years. She'd wait, she'd heal, she'd plan. She'd become patient the way her mother had been patient. And when Min-jae and Lena finally let their guard down, when they convinced themselves they were safe, when they built the life they were dreaming of, that's when Ji-yeon would strike. Not to kill them quickly, but to destroy everything they'd built, piece by piece, until they begged for death as mercy. Because the Hwang family didn't forget, and some debts took generations to repay. She stared at her reflection in the dark window, saw her mother's eyes looking back, and smiled. "Rest well, Min-jae," she whispered. "Enjoy your happiness while it lasts. Because I'm coming for everything you love. And this time, there won't be any mercy." 18 months passed like a dream they were afraid to wake from. The house on the Costa Rican coast became their entire world. Min-jae, now Marcus Chen to anyone who asked, learned to cook breakfast without burning the eggs, started running along the beach at dawn, let his hair grow longer than his father would have ever permitted. The rigid control he'd worn like armor slowly dissolved into something softer, though Lena sometimes caught him staring at the ocean with haunted eyes, carrying conversations with ghosts only he could see. Lena, Elena Vasquez, on all official documents, took a job teaching English at the local school, spent afternoons with children who had no idea she'd once been shot, defending the man she loved from a woman raised on hatred. She planted a garden, learned Spanish properly instead of the broken phrases she'd picked up from kitchen staff years ago. Discovered that boring could feel like luxury when you'd spent months expecting death around every corner. They got married on the beach at sunset with 2 witnesses pulled from a nearby cafe and a local official who pronounced them husband and wife in Spanish they barely understood. No designer dress, no 300 guests, no explosions or bullets or betrayals. Just them and the ocean and vows spoken in voices rough with emotion. "I promise to love you in the quiet moments," Min-jae said, his thumb brushing away tears from her cheek. "When there's no danger forcing us together. When it's just us and the choice to stay." "I promise to remind you every day that you're not your father," Lena replied. "That the man you are now is the one you chose to become." They kissed as waves crashed behind them and the sun painted everything gold. And for the first time since that night at Beaumer, Lena allowed herself to believe they might actually survive this. But peace, she was learning, was something you borrowed, not something you owned. The warning came on a Tuesday morning 14 months into their new life. Lena was grading papers at the kitchen table when her phone buzzed with a message from a number she didn't recognize. She almost deleted it automatically. Spam was relentless even in paradise. But something made her open it. A photograph of their house, taken from the road, angled to show both the terrace and the bedroom window. Below it, 3 words. Nice, quiet life. Lena's blood went cold. She grabbed her phone and ran to find Min-jae, who was in the garage working on the fishing boat he'd been restoring with the kind of patience that came from having nothing but time. "We've been found," she said, showing him the message. Min-jae stared at the photo, his expression transforming from peaceful to lethal in the space of a heartbeat. All the softness they'd built over 18 months evaporated, replaced by the man who'd once run a criminal empire with surgical precision. "When was this taken?" His voice was controlled, clinical. "I don't know. Could be yesterday. Could be weeks ago." Lena's hands shook. "It's Ji-yeon, isn't it?" "Probably." Min-jae was already moving, pulling out a phone Lena had never seen before, a backup device with encrypted contacts from his previous life. He made a call, spoke in rapid Korean to someone who answered immediately, despite it being 3 a.m. in that time zone. The conversation lasted 5 minutes. When Min-jae hung up, his jaw was set. Sung-ho's been monitoring chatter. Ji-yeon resurfaced 3 months ago in Singapore, started asking questions about property purchases in Central America. He set the phone down carefully. He thought she was just fishing, didn't realize she'd actually found us. "What do we do?" "We leave. Today. Right now." Min-jae was already mentally cataloging what they'd need, planning exit strategies. "There's a private airstrip 40 minutes from here. Sung-ho can have a plane ready in 2 hours. "And go where?" Lena grabbed his arm. "Run again? Rebuild again? Wait for her to find us again? What's the alternative?" "We end this." Lena's voice was steadier than her pulse. "We stop running and we finish what should have ended in that forest." Min-jae stared at her. "You're talking about hunting Ji-yeon. I'm talking about making sure we never have to run again." Lena met his eyes. "She's not going to stop. You know that. She'll chase us across continents for the rest of our lives unless we remove the threat permanently." "You want me to kill her?" "I want us to survive without looking over our shoulders forever." Lena's hands fisted in his shirt. "I want the life we've built here to be real. Not temporary. Not borrowed. Real." Min-jae was quiet for a long moment, and Lena watched him wrestle with the decision. The man he'd been would have already made the call, already mobilized resources, already started planning the execution. But the man he was trying to become recoiled from returning to that darkness. "If we do this," he said finally, "we do it clean. No collateral damage, no innocent casualties, just Ji-yeon and anyone she brought with her." "Agreed. And after this, we're done. Completely done. No more enemies, no more debts, no more legacy." "Yes." Lena kissed him hard. "After this, we get to be boring for the rest of our lives." Min-jae almost smiled. "I'm going to hold you to that." He made more calls. Sung-ho arranged equipment delivery and tactical support. Min-jae's old network, the pieces he hadn't completely burned, activated with frightening efficiency. Within 6 hours, they had surveillance on their own house, tracking equipment, weapons, and a plan that terrified Lena even as she helped refine it. They were going to let Ji-yeon come to them. "She sent that message to scare us," Min-jae explained as they set up cameras and motion sensors around the property. "To make us run. When we don't, she'll escalate. Try to draw us out or come for us directly. And when she does, we'll be ready." He showed Lena the defensive positions he'd established, the sight lines, the escape routes, if everything went wrong. "But she won't come alone. She's too smart for that. She'll bring backup." "How many?" 4, maybe 5 operators, professionals who don't ask questions. Min-jae checked a rifle, loaded it with practiced efficiency. "We'll be outnumbered, but we have home advantage and element of surprise." "Those aren't great odds." "No." He looked at her seriously. "Which is why, if this goes wrong, you run. You take the emergency vehicle, you go to the coordinates I gave you, and you disappear. Sung-ho will handle the rest." "We've had this conversation before. I'm not running." "Lena." "No." She grabbed the rifle from his hands, checked it herself the way he'd taught her years ago in what felt like a different lifetime. "We started this together. We end it together. Stop trying to protect me from the consequences of my own choices." Min-jae studied her face, saw the determination there, and finally nodded. "Okay. Together." They spent the next 3 days preparing, turning their peaceful beach house into a fortress that didn't look like one. Cameras hidden in landscaping, weapons stashed in strategic locations, communication equipment tested and retested. They moved through their normal routines during the day, Lena teaching, Min-jae fishing, maintaining the fiction that they were oblivious to being watched. But at night they lay awake listening to every sound, hands resting on weapons hidden beneath pillows. The attack came on the fourth night. Lena woke to Min-jae's hand over her mouth, his other hand pointing to the security monitor showing 4 figures moving through their property with professional precision. She nodded, adrenaline slamming through her system, and they moved in practiced silence to their defensive positions. Min-jae took the master bedroom with sight lines covering the front approach. Lena positioned herself in the guest room overlooking the beach access. They communicated through earpieces, voices barely whispers. 4 confirmed, Min-jae said. Armed, moving in pairs. Where's Ji-yeon? Lena scanned the monitors but couldn't find a 5th figure. Probably hanging back, letting her people do the initial breach. Min-jae's voice was calm, controlled. Remember the plan. Let them get inside. Wait for my signal. The first pair reached the front door. One of them produced tools for picking the lock. Min-jae had deliberately left it vulnerable, creating an obvious entry point. The door opened silently and 2 operators entered, weapons raised, night vision engaged. They moved through the house like professionals, clearing rooms with tactical efficiency. Lena watched them approach her position, forced her breathing to stay slow and steady, finger resting on the trigger. Min-jae's voice in her ear. On 3, 3, 2, 1. Lena stepped out from cover and fired twice. Center mass, just like Sung-ho had drilled into her. The first operator went down hard. The second spun toward her, weapon rising, but Min-jae's rifle cracked from the other room and the operator collapsed. Gunfire erupted from outside, the second pair responding to the initial shots. Bullets punched through windows, tore through walls, turned their peaceful home into a war zone. Lena dove behind the bed frame, heard Min-jae returning fire, the sound of breaking glass and splintering wood. 2 more outside, Min-jae reported, his voice still eerily calm. East side, taking cover behind the water feature. I can't get an angle on them from here. Stay put. I'm moving. Lena watched through the monitor as Min-jae ghosted through the house, using shadows and cover like he'd been born to it. This was who he'd been before she met him, a predator moving through his territory, eliminating threats with cold efficiency. More gunfire. A scream cut short. Then silence. Clear, Min-jae said. 4 down. Where's Ji-yeon? That's what I want to know. Min-jae's voice tightened. She should have moved by now. Should have either engaged or retreated. Lena scanned the monitors, looking for any movement, any sign of the 5th operator who had to be here somewhere. Nothing. Just their destroyed house and 4 bodies cooling in the tropical night. Then she saw it. A flicker of movement on the monitor covering the beach access, not coming from outside, coming from inside the house. Min-jae, she's already in. The bullet took her monitor, showering her with glass and sparks. Lena rolled, came up with her rifle raised, and found herself staring at Ji-yeon standing in the doorway. They'd both changed in 18 months. Ji-yeon looked harder, thinner, carrying scars that weren't all physical. But her eyes held the same deadly focus Lena remembered from training sessions that felt like a lifetime ago. Hello, Lena, Ji-yeon said quietly. You've gotten better. You've gotten predictable. Lena kept her weapon trained center mass. Sending the others in first while you came through the beach entrance, we deliberately left vulnerable. Ji-yeon smiled. And here I thought you'd both gone soft, playing house, pretending to be normal. We were normal. Until you reminded us why we can't be. You could never be normal. Ji-yeon took a step forward and Lena's finger tightened on the trigger. You fell in love with a monster that stains you forever. Min-jae's not a monster. He's his father's son, just like I'm my mother's daughter. Another step. We are both carrying debts we didn't choose, sins that were decided before we were born. Then choose differently, Lena's voice cracked. Choose to let it go. Choose to build something instead of destroying everything. I tried that once. Ji-yeon's smile was terrible. I tried to be loyal to Min-jae, tried to protect him, tried to believe he was better than his father. And you know what that got me? Watching my mother die in a burning building while he walked away holding your hand. Your mother tried to murder 43 people. My mother tried to balance the scales your family tipped. Ji-yeon's voice rose. My grandfather, my uncles, my cousins, all dead because Min Jae's father decided they were obstacles. And what consequence did he face? He died peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by wealth he stole from their corpses. So you murder innocent people to settle a debt from 30 years ago? Lena shook her head. That's not justice. That's just more violence. Then what would you call justice? Ji-yeon demanded. What payment balances the books when entire families are erased? I don't know. Lena's hands ached from gripping the rifle. But I know murder isn't it. I know spending your life chasing revenge isn't it. I know dying in some pointless last stand isn't it. Then what is? Surviving. Lena's voice softened. Living long enough to build something that outlasts the hatred. Being more than what they made us. For a moment, something flickered across Ji-yeon's face. Something that might have been doubt or grief or exhaustion. From carrying rage for so long, it had become her entire identity. Then Min Jae's voice came from behind her. Step away from her, Ji-yeon. Ji-yeon didn't turn. Hello, Min Jae. Come to finish what you started in the forest? I gave you mercy once. Min Jae moved into Lena's peripheral vision, weapon raised. I won't make that mistake again. Then shoot. Ji-yeon's voice was absolutely calm. Put a bullet in my back. Become exactly what your father was. My father would have tortured you first, made an example. Min Jae circled until he was positioned where both women could see him. I'm just going to end this. See, Lena? Ji-yeon gestured at Min Jae without taking her eyes off Lena. This is who he really is. This is what you fell in love with. A killer pretending to be redeemed. I'm not pretending. Min Jae's voice was raw. I'm trying. Every day I'm trying to be better than what I was raised to be. But you keep dragging me back into this darkness. Because that's where you belong. Ji-yeon finally turned to face him. You can run to Costa Rica. You can marry the girl and play fisherman. You can do everything possible to erase who you are. But the blood is still on your hands, Min Jae. Your father's blood. My family's blood. All of it. I know. Min Jae's weapon never wavered. I carry it every day. But I'm trying to make sure no more blood gets added to that weight. By killing me. By ending this cycle. Min Jae took a breath. Your mother was right about one thing. My father was a monster. He destroyed your family for profit and power. That was evil. That deserves consequences. But those consequences don't include slaughtering innocent people who had nothing to do with what happened. So what do you propose? Ji-yeon's smile was bitter. We all just forgive and forget? Move on like nothing happened? No. Min Jae lowered his weapon slightly. I propose I give you what my father should have given your family 30 years ago. Compensation. Restitution. Everything I have. The room went absolutely silent. What? Ji-yeon breathed. I have access to accounts my father built. Assets he stole. Territory he took. Min Jae's voice was steady. I was planning to donate it all eventually. Use it for something good. But if it ends this, if it balances the debt enough that you can finally let go, then it's yours. You're offering me money? Ji-yeon laughed, sharp and broken. You think my family's legacy is worth a bank transfer? I think nothing I do will ever be enough. Min Jae set his weapon down, raised his hands. But I'm offering everything I have anyway. Because the alternative is we kill each other here and nothing changes except there are more bodies on the pile. Ji-yeon stared at him, weapon shaking in her hands. Why? Because Lena's right. Min Jae glanced at her. Because surviving is the only revenge that matters. And I want both of us to survive this. You and me. All of us. I want the killing to finally stop. Tears ran down Ji-yeon's face. I've spent 20 years planning your death. I know. I destroyed your organization, killed your people, nearly killed your wife. I know that too. So why offer me anything except a bullet? Because you're not my enemy, Ji-yeon. Min Jae's voice cracked. You're my father's victim, just like Lana was, just like I was. And victims shouldn't keep destroying each other while the real monsters get away with everything. Ji-yeon's weapon lowered fractionally. Your father's dead, but his legacy keeps killing people. Min-jae took a step forward. So let's end it. Let's take everything he built and use it to help the families he destroyed. Let's turn his evil into something that actually balances the scales. That's impossible. Probably. Min-jae's smile was sad. But it's better than spending the rest of our lives hunting each other until one of us finally succeeds in murdering the other. Ji-yeon looked between Min-jae and Lena, her weapon still raised but her expression collapsing. I don't know how to do anything except hate you. Then learn. Lena lowered her rifle completely. Learn the way I had to learn, the way Min-jae's learning, one day at a time, one choice at a time, choosing to build instead of destroy. And if I can't, then you pull that trigger, Min-jae said quietly. And you live with the knowledge that you became exactly what you hated, that you let my father's evil turn you into the same kind of monster. The silence stretched so long, Lena thought her heart would stop from the tension. Ji-yeon stood there with her weapon raised, tears streaming down her face, every muscle trembling with the weight of a decision that would define the rest of her life. Finally, slowly, she lowered the weapon. I'm so tired, Ji-yeon whispered, so tired of being angry. I know. Min-jae crossed to her carefully, took the weapon from her shaking hands. So rest. Let it go. Let us help you build something that isn't about revenge. Ji-yeon collapsed to her knees, shoulders shaking with sobs that sounded like they'd been locked inside her for decades. Lena moved to her, knelt beside her, and did something that should have been impossible. She held the woman who'd tried to kill her and let her grieve for everything she'd lost. Min-jae joined them, and for a long moment the three of them just existed in the wreckage of the home that had been their sanctuary, surrounded by bodies and bullet holes and the smoking ruins of violence they were all desperate to escape. What happens now? Ji-yeon asked eventually. Now we clean up this mess, Min-jae said. We make calls, we handle the bodies, we deal with the consequences. And then? Then we figure out how to turn blood money into something that actually helps people. Min-jae stood, offered his hand to Ji-yeon. Together, if you're willing. Ji-yeon stared at his hand for a long moment, then took it. I don't trust you. Good. I don't trust you either. Min-jae pulled her to her feet. But maybe we can learn. They spent the next 3 days handling the aftermath. Sung-ho arrived with a cleaning crew who asked no questions and left no evidence. The bodies disappeared. The bullet holes were repaired. The blood was scrubbed away until the house looked almost normal again. Almost. Lena stood on the terrace watching the ocean while contractors finished the last repairs. Min-jae joined her, slipping his arm around her waist. We can't stay here, he said quietly. I know. The house would always carry echoes of that night now. Where do we go? Somewhere new, somewhere we get to start completely fresh. He turned her to face him. But first, there's something I need to do. 2 weeks later, they were in Singapore. Min-jae had called a meeting of what remained of his father's old network. The people who'd survived the federal investigation, who'd scattered across continents, who still carried loyalty to the Kang name even after everything had fallen apart. 37 men and women gathered in a private conference room overlooking the city. They looked at Min-jae with expressions ranging from respect to resentment, waiting to hear why he'd summoned them after vanishing for almost 2 years. Min-jae stood at the head of the table with Lena beside him and Ji-yeon standing against the wall, her presence a deliberate statement. My father built an empire, Min-jae began. He destroyed families, corrupted officials, and left bodies in his wake, and he called it business. The room was absolutely silent. I inherited that empire. I tried to legitimize it, to transform it into something sustainable. And I failed. He paused. 43 people died because I underestimated how much hatred my father created, how many debts he left unpaid, how many victims were still seeking justice. So why are we here? One of the older men asked. Because I'm giving it all away. Min-jae pulled up financial documents on the screen behind him. Every account, every asset, every piece of territory my father stole. I'm liquidating it all and distributing it to the families he destroyed. Shocked murmurs rippled through the room. You can't be serious, a woman said. I'm absolutely serious. Min-jae's voice was firm. My father's legacy is blood and suffering. I'm ending that legacy, and I'm asking all of you to help me do it. Why would we? Another man challenged. That money belongs to the organization, to the people who earned it. That money was stolen from families who did nothing except stand in my father's way. Min-jae met the man's eyes. And if you help me return it, if you help me build something that actually helps people instead of destroying them, then maybe we all get a chance at redemption. And if we refuse, then you walk away and you keep whatever you already have. No retaliation, no consequences. Just a clean separation. Min-jae's expression was calm. But you don't get to claim loyalty to me while also clinging to my father's sins. The discussions lasted 4 hours. Some people left immediately, unwilling to participate in what they saw as weakness. Others stayed, drawn by the possibility of actually making amends for decades of violence. In the end, 23 people pledged to help. It wasn't everyone, but it was enough. Ji-yeon stood with Lena while Min-jae finalized the arrangements, both women watching him navigate the delicate politics of dismantling everything his father had built. "He's actually doing it," Ji-yeon said quietly. "He's trying to." Lena glanced at her. "Will it be enough for you?" "I don't know." Ji-yeon's voice was honest. "But it's more than I expected, more than my mother ever got." "What will you do after this?" Ji-yeon was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to be anything except angry. Don't know what I am without the revenge that's defined me since I was 17. "Then figure it out." Lena's voice was gentle. "You have time now. You have resources. You have the chance to build something instead of destroying it. You make it sound easy." "It's not." Lena turned to face her fully. "It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Choosing to build a life with Min-jae, knowing what he came from, knowing what he'd done. But it's also been the most worthwhile thing." Ji-yeon studied her face. "You really love him?" "Yes." "Even knowing what his family took from mine? I can't change what his father did." Lena's voice was firm. "But I can choose who Min-jae is now, who he's trying to become. That's the man I fell in love with, not the legacy, the choice." Ji-yeon nodded slowly. "Maybe someday I'll understand that." "Maybe someday you won't need to," Lena offered a small smile. "Maybe someday you'll just be happy, and that will be revenge enough." The foundation was established 6 months later. The Hong Kong Restoration Initiative. Dedicated to supporting families who'd been destroyed by organized crime, funding education and recovery programs, providing legal assistance to victims seeking justice. Min-jae and Ji-yeon ran it together in an alliance that still felt fragile but was growing stronger. Lena watched them work, saw the way they circled each other with careful respect. Two people learning to build something from the ruins of generational hatred. It wasn't perfect. Some families refused the money, the wounds too deep for financial compensation to heal. Some members of Min-jae's old organization retaliated for what they saw as betrayal, requiring security measures that reminded them violence was always waiting in the shadows. But slowly, piece by piece, they were building something that actually mattered. 1 year after the Singapore meeting, Lena stood in their new home, a quiet house in rural Japan, far from cities and violence and the life they'd left behind. Min-jae found her on the porch, watching snow fall across the garden they'd planted together. "Ji-yeon called," he said, sitting beside her. "The foundation funded its 100th family today. That's amazing." She said, "Thank you." Min-jae's voice was soft with wonder. "Actually thanked me for giving her something to build instead of destroy." Lena took his hand. "How does it feel?" "Strange, good, terrifying." He looked at her. "Like, maybe my father's legacy doesn't have to define who I become." "It doesn't." Lena leaned against him. "You chose differently. You chose to break the cycle." "We chose," he corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching snow transform the world into something clean and new. Behind them, their home radiated warmth and safety. Ahead stretched years of quiet work, building something that mattered, helping people they'd never meet recover from violence they hadn't caused. It wasn't the life either of them had imagined that night at Beaumere when Lena stumbled into Min-jae's booth with champagne and trembling hands. It was better because it was real. Built on choices instead of circumstances. Built on love instead of legacy. Built on the understanding that redemption wasn't a destination, but a daily practice of choosing to be better than what you'd been. "Do you ever miss it?" Lena asked. "The power, the control, the certainty of who you were. Minjae considered the question seriously. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I miss the clarity of it, the simplicity of seeing the world in terms of threats and assets. But then I wake up next to you and I remember what I was sacrificing for that clarity. I was surviving, not living, controlling, not connecting, existing, not becoming. And now I'm becoming. He kissed her temple. Every day. Someone better than my father, someone worthy of you. Someone who gets to define himself instead of being defined by blood and violence. Lena turned to kiss him properly, tasting snow and promise and the future they were building together. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. I'm pregnant, she said. Minjae went absolutely still. What? Found out this morning. Wanted to tell you in person instead of over the phone. She watched emotions cascade across his face. Shock, fear, joy, terror, love. We're going to have a baby. He pulled her against him so tightly she could barely breathe, his whole body trembling. When he finally released her enough to see her face, there were tears streaming down his cheeks. I don't know how to be a father, he whispered. Neither did yours. But you're going to choose differently. Lena cupped his face. You're going to choose love over fear, connection over control. You're going to break every pattern he set. What if I can't? What if the violence is too deep? Then we figure it out together. Lena's voice was firm. The same way we figured out everything else. One day at a time, one choice at a time, choosing to be better. Minjae kissed her desperately, his hands cradling her face like she was something sacred. I love you, more than I thought I was capable of loving anything. I know. Lena smiled through her own tears. That's why I chose you. That's why I keep choosing you, every single day. They stayed on the porch until the cold drove them inside, then spent the evening planning a nursery and arguing about names and imagining a future where their child grew up knowing safety instead of violence, love instead of legacy, choice instead of destiny. 7 months later, Lena gave birth to a daughter they named Hope. Not after anyone, not carrying any family legacy, just a name that meant what they were building, what they believed in, what they were choosing to pass forward instead of the hatred and violence that had defined generations before them. Minjae held his daughter for the first time with hands that had once killed without hesitation, and Lena watched him transform completely. All the hardness that still occasionally surfaced, all the control that he wielded like armor, all the violence that lurked beneath his careful peace, it all dissolved in the face of this tiny human who depended on him for everything. Hi, Hope, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. I'm your father, and I promise you'll never have to be defined by what I was. You get to choose who you become. Ji-yeon visited a month after Hope was born, bringing gifts and an awkwardness that came from still learning how to exist without hatred as her primary motivator. She held Hope carefully, this child of the family that had destroyed hers, and something broke in her expression. She looks like you, Ji-yeon said to Lena. Same eyes. She has Minjae's stubborn chin, Lena replied, watching Ji-yeon with the baby. She's beautiful. Ji-yeon's voice cracked, and she'll never know what her grandfather did. Never carry that weight. No, Minjae stood beside them. She gets to be just Hope, not Kang, not heir to anything except the choice to be kind. Ji-yeon handed Hope back carefully. I'm leaving tomorrow. Going to Southeast Asia to start a new branch of the foundation. Might be gone for a year. You don't have to run, Lena said gently. I'm not running. I'm building. Ji-yeon's smile was small but genuine. Finally. She left the next morning after breakfast, hugging them both with an earnestness that still felt new and fragile. They watched her car disappear down the mountain road, carrying someone who was still learning to define herself by something other than revenge. Do you think she'll be okay? Lena asked. Eventually. Minjae's arm came around her waist. Same as us. One day at a time. They went inside where Hope was sleeping in her crib, tiny fists curled against her chest, completely unaware of the violence and hatred that had almost prevented her existence. Lena and Minjae stood watching their daughter breathe, and in that moment they understood what true victory looked like. It wasn't defeating enemies or accumulating power or controlling outcomes. It was standing in a quiet room watching your child sleep, knowing that the cycle of violence ended with you, knowing that everything you'd survived and sacrificed and chosen had bought her the freedom to be whoever she wanted. That was the only empire that mattered. That was the only legacy worth building. That was the only revenge that actually balanced the scales, surviving long enough to create something beautiful from the ashes of everything terrible. Years later, when Hope was old enough to ask about her parents' past, they told her the truth. Not the sanitized version, not the heroic narrative, just the messy, complicated, violent truth about where they'd come from and who they'd been. "Were you bad people?" Hope asked, 7 years old and already too perceptive. "We were broken people trying to become better," Min-jae answered honestly. "We made mistakes, hurt people, did things we're not proud of, but we chose to change, and that choice made all the difference." "Do you regret it? The things you did?" "Every day." Lena took Hope's hand. "But we can't change the past. All we can do is try to build a better future." "Is that why you started the foundation, to fix things?" "To try," Min-jae said. "We can't fix everything. Can't bring back the people who died or undo the harm that was caused. But we can help the people who survived, and that's something." Hope considered this seriously. "When I grow up, I want to help too." "Then you will." Lena hugged her daughter close. "You'll help in your own way. Building your own future. Making your own choices. Not carrying your mistakes? Never." Min-jae's voice was firm. "You get to be completely yourself, not defined by us or our past or anything except who you choose to become." Hope smiled, satisfied with this answer, and ran off to play in the garden where snow was falling like forgiveness or peace, or simply the passage of time that healed what violence could only wound. Lena and Min-jae stood watching her through the window, their hands intertwined, their hearts full of gratitude for a life they'd fought so hard to build. "We did it," Lena said softly. "We're doing it," Min-jae corrected. "Every day, every choice, every moment we choose love over legacy." "I wouldn't change anything," Lena looked at him. "Even the terrible parts, because they brought us here." "Me neither." Min-jae kissed her, soft and lingering. "You saved me, Lena Vale. That night at Beaumere when you almost spilled champagne on my table. You saved me from becoming exactly what my father was." "We saved each other." Lena rested her forehead against his. "That's what love does. It saves us from the worst versions of ourselves." They stood together watching their daughter play in the snow, watching their future unfold in her laughter and joy, watching the final chapter of their violent past close and a new chapter of peace begin. The girl who'd been invisible had found someone who saw her completely. The man built from violence had learned what it meant to choose gentleness. Together, they'd survived bullets and betrayals and the weight of generational hatred. Together, they'd built something that would outlast all the darkness that had tried to destroy them. And standing there in the quiet warmth of their home, surrounded by love they'd chosen and peace they'd earned, they finally understood what freedom tasted like. It tasted like forgiveness. It tasted like hope. It tasted like coming home to a life worth living instead of just surviving. And for two people who'd spent so long fighting in the darkness, that light was everything.